live and direct, and with me on vacation time. It is game night, episode 9. I got that one right, Ollie?
Game time!
Game
Game.
This is our second
Game
go.
time!
Episode 9. Episode 9 was recorded a few weeks ago, and it was literal dog shit. But
It was fine. It just had production issues.
Yeah.
let's get the intros out of the way. Joining me is the bearded one, Eric Kane.
There's more than one bearded one in this room.
Oh, yeah.
We're literally all bearded.
We all have beards.
Ollie, I hadn't looked at you yet. Sorry.
Okay.
Hello. That's me, Eric Kane. There's Ollie.
Hello.
How's,
Ollie Barder.
how are we doing with the death of Star Wars?
I'm not even watching this stuff. I'm just watching, like, from the outside. It's just... What's happening to Jason?
Jason's
The Matrix.
camera's freaking out, man. She insulted Star Wars. Now Kathleen Kennedy is in your machine.
Kathleen Kennedy and the dog-faced assassin trying to get me off the air.
Yeah, I've been watching it. I think the death of Star Wars is greatly exaggerated. I think that's mostly for, clickbait and outrage. I think Star Wars is not in great shape right now, but it's not, it's not dead. And now I'm seeing these levels. All right, so I'm gonna move my mic back.
Also,
Jason,
Barder.
just we're gonna get some technical shit out of the way really fast. I see almost all our levels spiking out.
Oh, really?
So,
Nice.
as you can, I don't know if you can see it on this.
I'm still really quiet again, aren't I? Yeah, it's done something.
This
weird.
is the fun behind the scenes stuff.
Okay.
You guys sound great. So,
Am I all right? Or
well, as you can see on yours, whenever it fully maxes out in that bar, that is hitting, and that's going to sound bad in the recording. Okay. So it needs to be so that it's never maxing out. I'm going to turn my gain down.
Yeah, yours is like insane, Eric.
Yeah, because I have a good setup, but the gain was definitely way too high. Okay, now it's more.
What about now?
Now it's better.
Am I good?
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. You see that very first line there is maxing out.
See, mine's not
Sorry,
showing
everyone.
I just turned mine down a bit.
Okay, turn it down a little more.
There.
It's a good thing this isn't a live stream. I mean, I can edit this out. I might just leave it in though, so people can laugh at us.
Yes, inside baseball.
No, leave it in. Leave it in. It's
yeah. Turn yours down a little more, Ollie.
Oh, okay.
I'm just watching and I'm seeing the lines hit the. See, you guys don't see that? You can't see that?
Yeah, no, I can see it.
Okay, so it should never be hitting full.
Yeah. Got it.
Then when I go to post, it's going to have a crackle sound every time it hits that.
Okay.
So, and that's no fun. We don't like that. We need an audio engineer.
Okay. I think I'm okay. Now.
Are we good?
Yeah, no, you look better now. Oh, nope, Jason, you're still too loud. See, the very first thing you said was just bam, just all the way up.
Okay, I can't go any lower.
It's probably on your settings on your PC. This is hilarious.
It might be your PC settings. Okay.
I'm standing back. I don't know what else I can do.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know.
I mean, I have a very sexual, booming voice. I can't help it.
Yes. You're making love to that microphone.
I'll pull the microphone away from me a bit. How about that?
Okay.
It's probably a PC setting. We'll figure it out.
All right. I do apologize.
It's okay.
That guy in the YouTube comments is going to be killing my audio quality again.
Yep. All right. So Star Wars. Back to Star Wars. The whole when people use headlines like "The Acolyte is ruining Star Wars," I think what they mean beyond just like the clickbaitiness of that is that it's very bad, and that's ruining the enjoyment of Star Wars for people who want Star Wars to be good. Star Wars itself is going to survive because it's still a lucrative IP and it's not going anywhere anytime soon. But it is unfortunate that it's just, I don't know. Have you guys watched any of The Acolyte?
I watched the first 2 episodes and thought it was so bad I just couldn't keep going.
You didn't get to the really bad episode.
Probably, yes, I've heard. I mean, I've been keeping up with it and I'm like, should I keep going? And then I see, Dyke Space Wedges birthing the Force from the cringiest fucking chance in the world. I'm like, and I know, you get to watch the episode. I don't need to watch it. If that's what it is, I don't need to watch. And I watch other stuff, and I'm just like, The fucking
It's just
haircut,
badly written.
the fucking
That is the main
haircut
thing.
with the lightsaber.
Yeah,
That chick,
that was pretty bad.
that chick is the worst. She's just awful.
Yeah, she's not great, but she's also given kind of poor material to work with. I always wonder if these actors that you know, if they're not being directed well and they're not working with a very good script, it's pretty hard to make the acting follow suit. Like,
I
but
think
no,
with
yeah,
all
she's
of
not
this stuff,
great.
it's always the writing and the direction.
It is. That's the main thing. I'm sure with a better script and better producers and directors that she would be fine. I mean, but yeah, it's just it's almost entertaining because it's just there's so many things where you're just like I see what they want to do, but they it's like a first draft of a script. It was never given like a second run where people are could say, hey, this doesn't work, this doesn't make sense, that's a bad line, you should flesh out these characters more, don't kill Carrie Ann Moss off in the first scene, etc. But
And like spoilers, everyone knows this if they even remotely care that she's killed off in 5 seconds. So
yeah, it's with a
and
little
it just,
tiny
I'll be
knife.
honest, like
Itty bitty.
it looks cheap.
It does. It looks cheap.
Why do these new, like so many of these new shows that have these insanely high budgets, they look like they're shot like shit. Like they look like fan films.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, I think it's this weird thing with some shows where it's like they have a big budget, but they skimp on like the cinematography. So it's all filmed in a way that does make it look like they're on a set wearing costumes rather than living. Andor did such a good job of creating places that felt real and lived in with characters who felt like they lived there. The sense of place was very strong. And, they were on the Ferrix, the mining planet. Everyone there was dirty. Their clothes were dirty. Their faces were dirty. And then you watch a lot of these shows like Obi-Wan Kenobi's on Tatooine working in a dusty environment, and he's like living in a cave, but his robes are perfectly clean and pressed.
Yeah, it was
like
terrible.
you would expect a little dirt. You'd expect a little, of that, and it just feels like where is the artistry? Where in the costume design, in the makeup department, and but this goes so far beyond just Star Wars to so many productions, like The Walking Dead, where people are living in a zombie apocalypse and they have perfect hair and clean clothes. Like I go camping for 2 nights and I'm filthy. Like
I just came back from staying in a hotel for 2 nights and I'm filthy.
Yeah, I mean,
You know what I mean?
try living in the woods for if I was going to make a post-apocalyptic show, I would have all the writers and like critical set members or production members go on like a week-long backpacking trip with me. We'd go out there and we'd get real dirty in the thick
Just
of it.
go full Daniel Day-Lewis method.
Fuck yeah. It's
Live
not even
in the
it's
fucking gutter
experience
for a
what it's
month.
like just to be out there for a few days where you have to build a fire. You know how stinky you are after having a fire? Like a campfire, like you get that smoke on you. It's just.
I mean, that's because you use poo.
I
mean, you shouldn't use poo in a campfire.
No, I mean it's the smoke, but you have to shit in the woods too, and that's not
That's
fun.
the other thing. Like none of these people, they don't have like lavatories. They're just shitting wherever. I don't know.
You got to dig holes and shit.
You, man.
I just think that like there's so many things like that. Somebody on my YouTube video I made today about the Acolyte pointed out that the writers on this show don't know what burning hair smells like because they were never allowed to burn hair or do anything else that was, this is this idea that a lot of these people in charge of these shows have come from privileged lives where they've never had to, deal with anything real. And so that's why all these shows feel so generic. And so
also, like you can tell no one's challenging them on their ideas for these shows.
Right.
Like the script. Yeah. This isn't going like even George Lucas was pressed on, especially after the Phantom Menace. Like guys, the first round of the Phantom, the guy, his best buddy was like, "This sucks." Like they basically told him it sucked.
But even in the original trilogy, George Lucas was, But George Lucas was not. He different people directed it. Other people wrote the scripts. He came up with the ideas, and then everyone else, even his wife, who was the editor of those films,
so that's the thing.
Was a hugely important figure in making them good. It wasn't, and then Lucas was in charge of everything for the prequels, and you can see what happened there.
Yeah, so that's really important.
And if you look at, I mean, we don't need to make this a whole Star Wars thing, but like
all we're talking about tonight is Star Wars.
I mean, we do it. I don't really care, but like even George later on, before he sold it, and after the prequels were even out, he would like show up in random like pitch meetings after like the pitch would be accepted for like a game and everyone's like hyped about it, and then come in with two fucking dumb ideas and just drop them on the table like he's just laying his hammer on the table, and then he just leave, and everyone would be like, what's that? Like, what was that? I thought we had the idea. And like there was supposed to be some Darth Maul video game where it was like an assassin. And I remember listening to this pitch, and there was a whole article, and George just come in, he's like, he needs to have a sidekick that's like this fucking thing, and everyone's like,
Jar Jar.
Like, what? No.
Darth Jar Jar.
I have spoken.
Yeah. Star Wars has just been a mess. This is what I said in a couple of my things I've written. I was like, people are always like, Disney's ruining Star Wars. And it's like, well, Star Wars was not in good hands.
No.
Before Disney. Like, they were, there weren't any new games coming out. The prequels were a disaster. Like, the only thing that you could remotely say was successful was the cartoons.
Like, the revisionism about the prequels to me is astronomical. Because don't get me wrong, there are parts, but this whole thing, how the prequels were this glowing beacon of film excellence, I'm like, no, that didn't happen. Listen, everyone loved everyone loved Phantom Menace at the moment because it was new Star Wars.
No.
Well, most of them did. But then after the dust settled,
grew up with it.
After the dust settled, they were like, "This isn't very good." Even the way
I walked out of the theater feeling brokenhearted. Like, I was so sad after the Phantom Menace. I was baffled.
I got sucked in by the spectacle. I remember I pitched. There was a massive line. People had camped out, and it wasn't actually a line.
You were too invested, basically. It's like, this has got to be good.
I felt that way about the sequels, I think.
My dad was like an original Star Wars guy, but he never kept up with it. So I thought it was like a thing we could do. So I was like, I'll go get us tickets. Yeah. But the thing is, the lineup wasn't actually a lineup. People slept in a lineup, but they didn't call that the line. So when they called for the line, I was like, I'm really fast. I just booked it right to the front. So I didn't give a shit. I was like the 10th one in line, and these poor guys slept the whole time there. Grabbed the tickets, duel the fate, just bounced.
You chose the dark side that day.
But I was caught up in the spectacle of it, and then I saw it like 2 more times. I'm like, I think I didn't want to admit to myself it wasn't very good. Attack of the Clones is a terrible movie. Revenge of the Sith is okay. Is it? What's the third one called?
Revenge of the Sith.
Yeah, it's okay, but it's not great.
But like, for the Phantom Menace, they spoiled the fact that Qui-Gon Jinn died on the soundtrack release that was released before the film. So if anyone was into like buying John Williams' music, it was, good for you. You've just spoiled the movie. The whole thing with the point you're making that there's the whole great man myth that everyone kind of attributes a lot of credit for one person. I think is George Lucas obviously has a great amount of creative input into those original movies, but it was a massive team effort with an army of incredibly varied and talented people, like the Ben Burt who did all the sound effects for all the lightsabers and everything. I mean, blaster sounds. I mean, that's iconic stuff. And then you've got, all the ship designs. Joe Johnston, I think, did Ron Cobb work on it? But, Joe Johnston doing all these amazing ship designs, all the model kit makers. It's just an army.
And the writers, Lawrence Kasdan, other writers that, that came in.
And then the directions for the, Empire and Jedi were not done by Lucas. So, and don't forget when, Alec Guinness came on board, he had a lot of the script changed because the dialogue was awful.
Yeah, he thought it was shit. And he thought the movie was shit when he was done.
No. He liked the movie when it was done. He just got a bit tired of everyone only ever talking to him about Star Wars.
Yeah.
But the thing, he was very much impressed with George Lucas before he did Star Wars and afterwards. But it was just the dialogue, and because he did so much stuff for the dialogue, they gave him, a percentage as a thank you, and that kind of meant that he never had to really work again for the rest of his life. So, but the other thing that really kind of, I think, cemented Star Wars's sort of rise to, mediocrity was the fact that all the toys, Lucas had the rights to those, which meant he just got a massive influx of money, which meant he could just go fuck you to everyone. And that basically was the reason why he was unchallenged for the prequels, because it was all his money.
Like the George Lucas, again, he even did revisionism with his own series. It was always intended to be a children's thing. No, it wasn't.
No,
it wasn't initially. He only changed. Came out with that all these years later.
Yeah,
and that became like this defense force. Oh, you're like trying to criticize like a children's property. Like, no, like
I always
it
say
wasn't.
that as well when
It only became a
comedians.
kids thing because he sold a ton of toys to kids after the fact and decided to change his mind about it.
I
But
always
anyway,
say
I only came here. We're not
Yeah.
giving the people these hot takes. We're giving them too much nuance. I just wanted some hot button stuff on Star Wars. But Ollie Barder, ladies and gentlemen, he's our third co-host now.
Yeah, supposedly. We can barely
Yeah.
get a word in edgeways.
That's what I hear. That's what I feel when you start talking about mech cocks and stuff like that.
No, that hasn't happened yet. It's you know, I'll
Like,
slip
you already
back and-
busted out a toy. You pulled the
No,
toy.
I'm
off.
already playing with some of my new stuff because no, yeah. I mean, I'm not really watching the Acolyte. Not really interested.
You're not
I
missing.
thought Andor was kind of interesting.
That was fantastic.
I kind of it was kind of weird for me because most of it's filmed in like British locations, and it's like, isn't that the Barbican? Is that where the Empire is? It's based in the Barbican with extra flying cars. It's a bit weird. And I liked, I suppose, Rogue One because it's a similar kind of thing. But I mean, I thought Force Awakens was kind of interesting when it came along, and then it just went all of it.
Well, it was a good start that had some problems, but you hope that like that good start with problems is going to lead to something better. Then because to be fair, A New Hope also was a good start with problems.
Yeah, exactly.
That's not a perfect film, and Mark Hamill was really getting his feet wet. Like he was, I go back and watch that and I'm like, damn, Hamill is so whiny in this movie. But it got better. And the problem with the sequel trilogy is it just didn't.
No.
It went in so many directions. They had no idea what they were doing. Frankly, it's
I think the biggest problem that people have, and the biggest push is like they double down. They can't admit, like, even the people that are loosely connected or after the fact, or I get in the moment they're never like, yeah, actually this isn't all that good. But after the fact, there's no like revisiting the things that didn't work. It's like, no, it's good, and this is what people want.
Well, for a second, it seemed like they were like, honestly, when Mandalorian first came out, I thought, okay, they're figuring out what makes Star Wars.
Mandalorian season one's good.
Shit,
and then
this is great.
I kind of like Mandalorian overall, but the first season was
2 was good. 2 was good. 3 had a lot of problems.
3 was
really
good.
2 should have been the end. They had a great ending.
Yeah,
it was a perfect ending. That's the problem with 3 is that they kind of retconned a lot of that.
It undoes everything that was good about 2's ending,
which they actually do in Boba Fett, which was a mess.
Sorry, yes, in Boba Fett,
but
we had to just 3 was just like coolest characters.
I've not watched Boba Fett, so
yeah, it's not worth watching. You know what they could have done is just instead of doing a Mandalorian season 3 and bringing in back Grogu and all that stuff, is they could have just made a show about the Mandalorians retaking their home planet. Just a different show. Yeah. And then had it just be focused on that, because the third season was just like all over the place. There was no focus at all.
It wasn't good. And also Mandalorian wasn't, the main character.
Which would have worked if it was a new show just about that, that story. And instead it was just like, who knows? But if they could just lean into what made Mandalorian great, what makes Andor and Rogue One great, those are totally different stories, of course, but lean into those things, those kinds of stories, then they could have badass female protagonists and everyone would be happy with it.
Yeah, but
they could have
and that's
all
the
that
other
stuff
that holds no water, because right now House of Dragon is on.
Right, and people love that shit.
And everyone loves it. Everyone knows that's bullshit. It's a bullshit defense given by people with not a leg to stand on, and they can't defend their own show, so they go to this misogyny, you don't like women. Like, I worship at the altar of Olivia Cook. I mean, and Emma Darcy, is it?
Yeah, Emma Darcy.
Yeah, and both, she's cool as fuck. Like, give me that show all day long. I'll watch women like that, characters like that all day long.
Well written characters.
But the thing is, you write dudes like how you write the main characters in Acolyte. I'll call it shit too. Like, it has nothing to do with the fact that it's women.
Absolutely.
None at all. Anyway.
So, moving away from Star Wars, back to games. It turns out that Ollie is not playing Elden Ring's Shadow of the Erdtree DLC, which disappoints me. Have you played any of Elden? How much of Elden Ring have you played, Jason?
I played about 20-30 hours of Elden Ring.
I believe
30
that
hours. So you're
posed to me, Ollie.
What? Sorry.
Well, to both of you.
Just joking.
To both of you. How many? Have you played much Elden Ring? I assume neither one of you are anywhere close to getting to the DLC.
No. I'm not in the DLC, but I have thoughts, and I'd love to talk to you because I've read all the reviews and I've spoiled the living shit out of it. For me.
So you're one of those kind of guys that
no, absolutely
spoils the stuff.
There is no way I'm getting to this DLC anytime soon, and I love to play the foil for your glowing takes right now.
You can't really though because you haven't played it.
I can give you broad strokes takes about how I feel about the glowingness of this because they apply to so much of my From Software takes. And
we can talk From Software, yeah.
No, but even the Elden Ring shit. Okay, but let's go on. Let's jump ahead with this Shadow of the Erdtree jerk fest. And
I don't know how to talk about it. No one else has played it. It's really good. It's fantastic.
Ollie, I can't believe you're not. I thought you were the From guy.
So I'm the.
I know Eric guy.
I'm the proper From guy in the fact that I've been playing their games since the mid '90s. I'm playing. Yeah. You take that.
You are.
I've been playing their game since Kingsfield, and obviously a lot of Armored Core. But back in the day, like their games were really, really varied, strange, and interesting. And you had weird things like Kuon turn up, which was kind of like this Japanese survival horror, to do with Shinto magic, and it was amazing and weird. And very clunky. And then you have things like Otogi, you have Metal Wolf Chaos, you had bonkers stuff. And then things like the Another Century's episode games, all these kind of like really interesting, varied, very different. And even within the Armored Core series, like each entry was like dramatically, functionally different, like from each one. Whereas when it came to like Souls kind of felt like it took the Kingsfield framework and then added Oblivion into the controls in camera to make it more accessible, which is completely fine. But then it just sort of stayed there for a lot of the games. I mean, I've played them, but I don't think the Souls games are bad, but they're not. I mean, I love Demon Souls, but the rest of the Souls games don't do it as much for me. Even though there are good games and I play them and I suppose I enjoy it. Sekiro was definitely more interesting because it did things quite differently. Bloodborne was interesting also again because it tried to mix things up with basically it wasn't so much about blocking then attacking. It was much more you had guns that would actually, it was kind of much more of a like you were parrying almost, which I thought was quite interesting.
That and Sekiro are both parrying games.
Yeah. So Sekiro is more of like a direct parry because you actually physically parry, but the Bloodborne one is like you shotgun to the face parry, and then so if you call shotgun to the face a parry, but it's kind of the mechanic is trying to do something similar. But with I played Elden Ring, and again, it's just like this is basically Souls, and it's not bad, and it's good, and I know other people like it, but it's just not for me. It's a bit like everybody goes crazy for the Grand Theft Auto games. I play them, I get it, I understand how it works, I can see they're well made and they're good, but it's just not interesting. It just doesn't.
Before I toss over for the proper take, I'm with you. Like it's funny. I'm with you. Like I played so much Grand Theft Auto, like growing up. Even like 1 and 2, and then the evolution to 3, I worshipped. I played it so much, and Vice City. But by the end of San Andreas, I played it so much. I'm like, I've done these games now. Like I'm kind of through them. But I've actually our last conversation. I've thought about it a lot, Ollie. How you broken down the soulsifying of the action genre, and you told me the reason they're doing it is because they're easier to develop. And I thought that conversation we had last episode, which was a while ago, is actually stuck. We don't have to rehash it, but I've tried. I want to go back and listen to it to learn those lessons, like from a game design perspective, because I agree with you. And some of my critiques of like Souls games in general and Elden Ring, while maintaining that I know this is a great game, like a pinnacle game, but it has animations from Demon Souls in it, like core animations of it. And this is my inherent critique of these games is no other series of games or franchise would be able to get away with this.
Oh no! So there are games that do similar kinds of thing in terms of reusing animations, and they do get away with it quite a lot.
Okay, let's. I'm going to pass it over to Eric because there's one more thing I just want to kind of add onto all of this. It's not that I think
any of these games are bad. That's the important thing. But
neither.
Yeah, but the interesting thing is that there are something like, what, I don't know, 3-4 billion gamers, and I think Elden Ring sold about 25 million, which is not even a drop in the ocean of the number of people that play video games, and even something like Grand Theft Auto, what is it, 6, 5, or something like, I've lost count. It's
110
like,
million or something.
Yeah, it's like 110 million, right? And again, that's relative to the overall global gaming audience is, again, a tiny drop in the ocean. So I'm always very skeptical of, I think games shouldn't be, there's no such thing as a game for everyone. It just doesn't exist. I mean, there's lots of really interesting cognitive reasons why that is, and to do with linguistics and all sorts of other low-level cognition. But generally speaking, when it comes to stuff like when people say, "Oh, this is the best game of all time," it's like, for certain people, yes, but not everyone. So that's my only. It's not that I dislike Elden Ring; it's just not for me. It doesn't activate.
And someone recently online, I think it was a game designer, he came out and said, "A game for everyone is actually a game for no one."
Correct.
So, but okay, Eric, you take it away. Shadow of the Erdtree.
Yeah, I think that when we were talking about the action genre, we sort of, the games that Platinum was making, are very rare. Platinum Games makes Bayonetta and some of the other most popular, like, Devil May Cry, and there's just not a lot of games like that out there. Whereas there's just a shit ton of Souls-likes now. But the thing is that most of those are not very good, because what makes the Souls game good is just something that's very hard to replicate. It's not just the simple controls. It's the mood. It's the level design. It's how cryptic and rich the story is, but how they tell it in such a strange and unusual way. And it's just very hard for other developers to get that right. So you get a lot of bad imitations.
I think that's also a game development cycle thing. Give it another 5 years and you're going to see basically a lot of really, really, really... This is what always happens with game development and game genres in general. Is like someone comes out with like a new twist on a genre or a new genre, and then within 5-7 years, especially when it's AA or AAA, everyone's kind of learnt from those games, and then you just see a glut of it. So From Software's at the moment, they're really lucky because they're still in that honeymoon period. And once a lot of other people kind of, dial down, because the thing about the Souls games is, like I said, the reason why you get so many clones and why they're so easy is because they are using a formulaic structure internally to make it, easier to pump them out. But
yeah, and I just want to add, by no means is Ollie or I inferring that they're easy to make. Like, these games
and there's an incredible amount of craftsmanship.
And but far better than me, and I completely acknowledge the astronomical levels of work that go into it. It's just in terms of like a combat system, like Eric stated, like a Bayonetta or a Devil May Cry. There's so much more that goes into those. That doesn't mean there isn't a lot that goes into Souls games as well.
Right. Well, it's very different because it's an RPG that lets you play a lot of different ways. Whereas something like Bayonetta, you are limited by just Bayonetta's moves.
You have to play it the way it's made.
Right, and you have to learn, and then you hone down your skills, and you start getting better at the combos. It's a very different kind of thing. Whereas in an Elden Ring, maybe I'll play a fire build or a blood build or a magic build, or I'll play a tank or whatever. You can do a lot of different things. So it's just a different approach. As far as Shadow of the Erdtree goes, it's huge. It's a massive expansion. It's just huge. I am so far from completing it, and I've played a bunch. And it's a much more condensed map than the main game. So it feels more like Dark Souls than Elden Ring did, because it is more condensed. That things are built more on top of each other. So there's a lot less of that expansive exploration that you get in the main game, but there's still a ton of areas and dungeons. And I like that because I love how Dark Souls itself was designed so vertically and wrapped over itself and whatnot. It's very difficult. It's funny to me that we see so many people complaining about how hard it is, because I did fire up Demon Souls yesterday actually and play through the first boss, and it's not that hard for me now, but man, Demon Souls is hard. That's a hard game.
Yeah, it is.
I mean,
like,
when you play like things like Armored Core Last Raven, I mean, Jesus, it's like
well,
it's so difficult. It's almost impossible.
It's kind of funny because they did definitely ramp up the difficulty in Erdtree. You know, regular bad guys hit super hard, and the bosses are fast and they're just full of movement. It's kind of crazy, like how much they move and how many different like powers you'll encounter, and it's very, very challenging. But also, it's not as hard as Sekiro, which Sekiro is friggin' hard because you're just one-on-oneing. You don't have summons, you don't have magic, you just have like your sword, your parry, and your timing has to be so precise in that game. Whereas I can still spam dodge roll and throw out spells at bosses in this one, and I can summon my friends or the mimic tier and all that. But it's really fun. I think From Software is an incredibly impressive company. Just sticking to their guns in terms of making challenging games that are this one's more accessible than any of their previous games, but it's still, something like 60% of players or 62% of players had not gotten far enough to even access the DLC, which actually I find pretty impressive that 38% did.
At the
Mog is a hard boss.
I was going to add that at the same time, like, you look at the platinum rate and like the higher rarity difficulty achievements and trophies from Elden Ring, it's an extremely high level.
It's because it's a very good game. Like, it's very absorbing.
I think it's like near now. This only applies to whatever, but it's like 7, 8, 9% people platinum Elden Ring. Like, that's a major achievement. Yeah, most people are like 2%.
Yeah.
So. Yeah.
And that's because it's really good, and you want to keep playing. It's addictive. I've spent a few nights where I've stayed up till 2 a.m, just like, I need to go find out what's right over there, and now I'll go find out what's right over there. Now I'm going to try this boss 10 more times, and that's just I love it. I don't know. I love all the Souls games. I like that I know that they're similar, but they are all very different. Like playing Demon's Souls yesterday, I was like, yep, it's a very different game than Elden Ring. Those are both very different than Bloodborne and so on and so forth. So, Elden Ring to me is kind of.
Sorry.
No, go ahead.
Jason's also right on the percentage thing, because I think Armored Core 6 only got like 3%.
That's roughly the average of like 100% achievement or platinum trophy level on thing. Yeah. Like anywhere between 2 to really below 4%. That seems to be the average for most games, unless they're like accessible shorter games.
Yeah.
From Software has this thing of doing what Eric was saying, is like doing it behind like a wall. So like the DLC you can't access unless you killed like a really difficult boss. From Software, for some inexplicable reason, like one of the first toys they were going to do for Armored Core 6 is a boss that like only 30% of the people who played the game have actually beaten or even seen. So it's just like, I don't understand some of their reasoning sometimes. But I think with the DLC, I thought that was a really cool idea, that you've actually got to earn the DLC. That's a really nice thing, I think.
See, I like that too. And this is, I'm going to start. On goes the contrarian hat now. Okay. I find, because if most companies, when they lock DLC behind some sort of accessibility wall, they get mild complaints. Not like major complaints or anything, but they'll get critical pushback. Whereas From games don't get it at all. And I'm with you. Like, I want it
this time though. They got a lot of criticism on the difficulty. Yeah.
On the way it's but not on the way it's
like on access, because people complain, I want to play the DLC.
But even like Witcher 3,
people are always like, it should have easy mode all the time.
That's always been happening. Witcher 3 even had to add on aspects for their expansions that you could literally start the game at the expansion with the character that they made for you. Like, because that was a complaint that, and this happens with a lot of games. Like if the DLC isn't really like Horizon, they come out with Frozen Wilds for the first game and then the Burning Waste for the second game, that these are only accessible after a certain point, and people are like, it's not really accessible. I'm like what the fuck are these people supposed to do? Like, this is like,
it's sort of silly when access means you have to play the game.
Yeah, exactly. Like they want it.
Like, sorry, you should accessibility to me should only count when you're talking about like disabilities, like accessibility features that help people play a game that might be hard.
I'm not wording it.
Well, no, but I think that there's two, that word is used for both things. Accessibility to the content, but also accessibility to controls and all of that stuff. And I think that accessibility to content is like whatever the game developer wants to say it is.
I'm kind of now I'm contrast. I'm contrarian my contrarian thing because I'm with you. Like I want the developer's vision. I don't want to compromise that at all.
So the
I
thing
don't
is, publishers really interfere with the accessibility thing, though. So I think I'm really glad here that that is clearly not happening or hasn't happened.
And it hasn't,
because
they've always done that.
Or if it did happen, it was pushed back against. Most of the time, like with most of the publishers I've been either worked at or been on the receiving end of, they've always wanted to kind of... They want to... I mean, obviously they're making an investment, so they want to maximize the returns. They want as many people to be able to play what you're making. But at the same time, if you, like you said, if you try and make a game for everyone, you make a game for no one. So I think it's very, very important that you pick your niche is the wrong word, but pick your...
Well, they've earned...
And then just follow
like, if they were to add their DLC the way they wanted, and let's say they was folk and tested, like, no, we should actually do this. They're like, no, fuck you, I'm going to do how I want. And if that flopped, probably with the next game, they wouldn't have been able to do it how they wanted to. But they've just... This roller coaster of success for Amazon, to great success with 6, 7, 8, 9, to just an absolute explosion of success with Elden Ring, where they have the cachet to do anything they want at any time. And their release, what impresses me the most about the company is their ability to release monumental games, achievements that are critical and commercial successes at like a clip of really the PS3 360 gen in terms of release rates. You know, like we're talking like 3 years, right?
And they're not a huge company.
No other AAA developer is releasing games.
Erdtree's been in development for a while.
But Elden Ring was 2023.
Well,
yeah, but
Dark Souls came out in 2012. So Dark Souls 2, Dark Souls 3, Bloodborne, Sekiro, and Elden Ring all came out in the last 12 years.
So Dark Souls 2 has 2 big DLCs.
That has
Dark Souls 3 has 2.
But
yeah,
normally with the DLCs is they're made during production. So this is why it's difficult to say.
Well, 6 games, each of which has expansions, except for Sekiro didn't get it.
Sekiro is the only one that did not receive a substantial...
And Armored Core 6 hasn't been given an expansion as of yet.
So. Yeah, and they came out with Armored Core. So that's 7 games.
And,
yeah.
And
it's a great clip of game production. Yeah, and other Japanese studios have similar rates, I would say.
But you've got to understand From Software's pretty big now.
They've gotten a lot bigger.
I mean, it's 400 and something people. That's a massive studio.
So they have like a main team and a secondary team? Is that how they're working?
No, I think, well, I mean, I'm not entirely sure, but I mean, normally you have different teams, but by the sounds of it, there's like a lot of overlap and, you know, when something has to get out the door, then it's all hands on deck. I mean, but that's the same with most big studios. I mean, they're a big studio. I don't know if you know, but they recently moved to, I think, a much bigger office in Shinjuku because they were in a really old building in the middle of, like, nowhere, really. Well, not nowhere. It's just a bit of a weird place to have a game studio. But they moved into a much bigger studio from what I understand. But yeah, they got an enormous number of people. It's a massive, massive studio now. So
what will they do next? That's what I'm wondering.
Well, I think the smart thing is that they're diversifying. So they're kind of going back to what they used to do. They're using the success of the Souls games to kind of bring lights on older franchises and do other stuff. But yeah, I think, I mean, I don't know. I mean, hopefully lots of different things, really.
I wonder if they did like a modernized King's Field, like a first person, you know, RPG.
I don't know.
I wonder how that would be received.
I wouldn't want them to go
Wizardry in Japan is like
just as one of their IPs.
Yeah, but Wizardry in Japan is like a massive institution culturally. And they just released a remake of the first ever game, like, you know, massively redone, and it looks gorgeous. And King's Field
just in Japan.
No, I think it was international.
Wizardry remake? How did I?
Yeah, no, I think it's. Is it called the? What is it? The something of the Mad King. They've just released it, and it looks
Proving Grounds of the Mad Overlord.
That's it.
What the fuck? I never heard of this.
And that's the first ever Wizardry game, and Wizardry's kind of like.
No, that came out in May.
Yeah. No, it came out really recently. It's like it influenced the Dragon Quest games. Literally the framework for Dragon Quest comes from Wizardry. The same goes for Final Fantasy. But no, going back to Kingsfield, like Kingsfield was kind of like a 3D action version of Wizardry, basically. I don't know if you'd want to see. I mean, the Kingsfield games, like even in Japan, are super niche. And and like
you're gonna roll in first person.
I mean, yeah, I mean, you can roll in first person, but you just wouldn't see it. The thing is I don't know. I mean, I like the fact that they're doing new things. I mean, Sekiro, Bloodborne, they were very different. I don't.
I'd like to see like a sci-fi one.
Yeah,
that'd be kind of cool.
I'd love that. I mean, I mean, a lot of people were expecting the next Armored Core to be like a fantasy version of Souls, which again I think would be fascinating. But I mean, I'm much more interested in them doing new stuff. I don't really want to see them go back and start doing remakes or remasters. Although it would be nice to have like access to some of their older catalog, because a lot of gamers don't know the history of the stuff that they've done before Souls. But I mean, I don't really think. I mean, they did like Metal Wolf Chaos XD, and that I think was outsourced, but that didn't do very well. I mean, the game's good, but I mean, it was a bit of a weird one, that one. But yeah, no, I think ideally, I mean, it's clear that Miyazaki is massively into fantasy RPGs, so I imagine we're going to probably see more of those. But I don't really have a problem with that. I think the smart thing is the fact that they are trying to diversify. I mean, Armored Core 6 was a good move from trying to kind of reinvigorate some of their older IP. But yeah, new stuff.
So how do you find the bosses in Shadow of the Erdtree?
They're really tough. They're very, very challenging. Yeah, they're very aggressive. They're very fast. They have difficult movesets that are hard to pin down.
Do you think any of it's unfair? Listen, I haven't played it. These are just probing questions.
No, I don't think it's unfair. I think it's frustrating at times, but that's always been my experience with Souls games. You have to adjust, which is also my experience with all these. It took me a while with Bloodborne, for instance, to adjust to that new play style. And I had to really rejigger my thinking because I was so used to Souls games where you have a shield. And Bloodborne was like, nope, you don't need a shield. They even give you a shield, and it's a little rickety wooden shield.
And they're making fun of the fact that people use shields.
Yeah. And I barely, I use a shield some in Elden Ring, but I don't use it a lot. I've really changed my play style to try to be fast and dodge and, mix it up a lot. They've even added into the Shadow of the Erdtree DLC, if you beat the first fire golem, you get a talisman that makes your parry much, much, much more like the parry in Sekiro. So you can actually play the game with more of that Sekiro style if you want. So it adds a lot of new ways of playing with some of the really, really cool weapons and other stuff that you find. But no, I find that, the mechanics to beat the bosses are there. You can summon, you can use your mimic tier, which makes a replicate of yourself and is very powerful. And there's a lot of ways. And sometimes you just have to get leveled up before you can beat that boss. You got to come back to it. And that's just the way it's always been. And that's the way it is here. I find it very, very funny. There was actually a VG 24/7 headline that I thought was great.
I know which one you're going to say.
See that one? Where it's like, From Software nerfed the DLC, so now you don't have to be as good as game journalists. Which I was like, oh yeah, good one. That's funny.
I'll give it because it's
a funny one.
One win in a sea of losses.
Well, they're leaning into the whole, game journalists suck. Well, if they can play it, right, if they can get through it, and then gamers are complaining it's too hard, it's pretty funny.
Listen, I'll just tell you, I don't trust any games journal that hides their achievements or trophies. So
I don't even look at my achievements and trophies. I've never cared about that shit.
No, but it just shows that you did. But in the past, there has been a number of them.
Sometimes you're required to hide that
so
stuff.
This is the thing is
also I get it.
I mean, a lot of games, and it's
I don't
a pain
mean
in the
moment. I don't mean in the moment. I just mean after the fact. Some of them just.
I often keep my shit on private all the time because I don't ever want to get on the wrong side of a review embargo, even when it's over.
My God,
just because you never know when you're going to have something, you're going to forget to do it.
Yeah, that's fair. That's a good.
So
point.
I think a lot of
games
exactly
the same as Eric.
way. Yeah, you just keep it all turned to private all the time so you never fucking stumble. Because you could get in so much trouble if you fuck up.
Well, there was a couple guys at IGN that got called out after reviews saying, with incorrect information, the developer called them
there
out.
have been, I've seen them myself.
Modern
Warfare 3 came out.
He's still there and a prominent guy, and they're like, well, we can see on the back end that you played it on easy, and this isn't accessible on easy, and da-da-da. And then other guys got called out, you're saying we can see only put in 12 hours in this MMO, and listen, it goes on and on. We don't have to talk about it.
It is fair, and I've written a lot about, game journalists not being able to play games with things like Doom and Cuphead.
There are some out there.
Oh god, the Doom thing from Polygon.
Oh no, there's a load. There's loads. And the way that they can't. I mean, I used to have to deal with this years and years and years ago when I was reviewing the old PlayStation 2 Armored Core games, because I was actually going up against editorials that physically couldn't play the games.
Yeah.
And I was explaining to them, this is a really good game, but they couldn't play it. And so I had constant fights with editorials about those games. So it's just, it's
I just wish that
problem.
I think it's totally fine if someone doesn't know how to play a certain kind of game and they approach that in their writing about the game. Like, I am new to this genre. Here's my experience, and they're just upfront about it. I suck at this. No one's going to hate on you for saying, I've never played this kind of game before. I suck at it. This is my experience. The problem is when someone's trying to write a review of something that they clearly don't have a good handle on, and they're affecting, people's consumer behavior. They're affecting the game score on Metacritic or whatever else. Like, I'm not the best Elden Ring player in the world, but I've played all this shit and I'm good enough. But if I was going to go play like a League of Legends or something, I wouldn't know the first thing about what I was doing. And so it's just like, whatever. Like if you suck at a game and at least you have you're upfront about it and you have a good attitude about it, then I think it's fine. Yeah. It's totally fine. And you can be a good reporter and not great at every game. That's the thing. Like, some reporters may not be great at every game, but they are going to have, great reporting on the game's industry itself, and so there is like some of that.
I mean, what I like about our setup at Forbes is you've got like Brian Mazik, who is the sports guy, right? Yeah. I can't play sports games for love nor money. They're my kryptonite, okay? And then you got Paul, who's really good at looter shooters. He loves his Destiny. He knows his stuff. And then you've got you with Souls, who is just like, I'm completely focused. And then there's me.
I'm also pretty good at Call of Duty.
Yeah, and Call of Duty. I mean,
shooters. Shooters are my other thing.
Yeah, no, but I mean, what I mean is we kind of specialize. I actually think, and it's really clearly messaged as well, and I really think that actually helps readers, because then they can actually. Okay, so this.
And then we all have our the other thing. We all like a lot of other things too. But then you have your kind of because, like, for instance, I wanted to seg into Zelda because I was thinking Elden Ring is kind of like the Zelda, the Breath of the Wild of the Souls games, and Zelda Breath of the Wild is like a big departure from earlier Zelda games, and then the Elden Ring is sort of open world version. And then we can talk about the new Zelda game that's coming out, the Zelda game starring Zelda. Because I know we wanted to chat about that a little bit, because you and I had a very similar take on this.
Yes, exactly. I mean, the first thing
which is that fucking Zelda doesn't get a sword, and that's some misogynistic bullshit.
So the thing I love about these games is that the developer behind it is a small little studio called Grezzo, who are really, really talented. And they did the 3DS Link Between Worlds, which I think has some of the most ingenious, clever level design I've ever seen in any game ever, because the way you can change into like a painting and then attach yourself to the walls. So I know that they can do incredible mechanics and like really interesting level design from like just a few small interesting strange mechanics. And I absolutely loved the Link's Awakening remaster remake. I mean, that is the original Game Boy game is my favorite Zelda game ever. So having it remastered and remade in such an amazing, really sort of expansive way was just amazing. Was beyond amazing. And then the new one, I know for a fact that what is it? It's called the Tri-Rod. The thing.
Yeah, the Tri-Rod.
The fact that she can create copies of objects in the world and then use them to kind of work her way through each map. I know that's going to be really interesting.
But it's totally going to be interesting.
It's not what I wanted to do with Zelda, and it's.
I would like to have both.
Right.
That's what I want. I want the Tri-Rod to do puzzles, and I want the sword and shield and everything to fight monsters. I want both.
And to be fair, that is kind of the hallmark of Zelda. It's like with the older games, you had things like the hook shot and all these different weapons that you had to switch out to do different things,
right?
Like the fire rod and all that lot. And then you still went back to the sword and shield, so you still had that. So it's kind of weird that is missing. Now, at the moment, we don't know if it does turn up later. So it may be in the game later on or at some point, or you may get to play as Link later on, and you may be able to switch between them or work together.
That would be cool if they did something like that.
Right, I mean, exactly. We literally know very little about the game at this point. But I love the fact that they went with the Link's Awakening remaster art style. I'm completely 100%. That is my bag. Please, more of this, please. But yeah, I saw that. I was like, but Zelda has what? Why no sword? She should be able to have like a really. Anyway,
make her have a cool. Different. It doesn't have to be Master Sword, but
yes,
a cool sword that's her own sword. Maybe not a shield. Maybe just a sword. Maybe double swords.
Yes,
maybe a sword and a knife.
Yeah.
Maybe and a bow. I don't know. I'd also like to see a new like Ocarina of Time style Zelda.
Well, this one Zelda battle, this goes right back to Ocarina of Time. I mean, when I forget what was her alternate appearance that in Ocarina of Time.
Oh yes, no, because she dresses up as
like a ninja with the thing, but I forget what the moniker she went by. But everyone always wanted Zelda to be playable.
Right. So what I want is a new Ocarina of Time, like a sequel, or just it's called something else, but it's that style where you can play as both.
Sure.
Zelda and Link.
And I'll just push. I don't want her to use a sword and shield. I mean, I want her to have.
She could use a different. But
I
want her to have a weapon.
I feel like you guys just want her to have combat in like
combat.
Yeah.
Not just the one that makes things that fight for you. That would be cool too. But I want her to have her own scimitar or a spear.
Her name was Sheik.
Double sword.
That was it. It was Sheik.
And she had the design was incredible. Like it was such an really awesome design. It was like, can I play as that? Again. And me personally, I don't really have much interest in this game. I don't mean to be. I've grown out of so much of Nintendo, and that's not a thing that I think they're juvenile for everybody. It's just for my personal taste. I feel like I've already played the best Mario game of all time. I feel like I've already played the best Zelda game of all time, and this is a me problem, not an industry problem. So you can shit on me all you want. I really don't care. But I've just
everyone's like that, though, right? We all get to our favorites, and then
I just only have so much time in my life, and I've shelved the Nintendo behind me. I played it for decades and decades, and barring really some rare gems, I tried to play Breath of the Wild. I really didn't like it. It wasn't for me, and just so much.
I didn't enjoy Breath of the Wild as much.
I liked it, but I hated weapons breaking.
Yeah,
it's so annoying.
Like weapon degradation.
I miss the big dungeons.
And I'll preface this with it's such a It's not even really a thing that matters in Souls games, so I don't even count that. It's just a mild distraction. Like, does anyone ever break their weapons in Souls games? No.
Yeah, right? You can.
I mean, you can if you're completely ignoring it, but it takes a long time to do it. But to me,
it's very clearly messaged on its durability. That's the big problem with Zelda.
It's very easy to tell.
It's not clear how close you are. And I think Tears of the Kingdom fixed a lot of this with the weapon fragility and also the big dungeon. So I much prefer Tears of the Kingdom because of that.
And I've heard
I don't really like the building stuff in that. I don't really care for that.
Same.
I don't really care for it.
I'm not in. And again, I recognize the masterful game design and the intricacies, and they're giving me. But I'll just be honest, I'm not playing Zelda games for that. Like, I'm not. You can call me old-fashioned.
Old-fashioned.
But old-fashioned. No, the only thing with the Tears of the Kingdom building stuff is I kind of view it as as an extra. It's not like the focus. Yeah. So whenever
I think I got too stuck on it.
Yes,
I needed to
I don't know. Maybe. I mean, I'm not.
I'm not building the fucking Independence Day warship.
No, but so the stuff that you see online,
I'm not doing it right.
Like people build like Metal Gear Rex inside. Kingdom, and it's just like
it's crazy.
Now I feel like my penis isn't big enough or something. You know what I mean?
Well, you're playing the game wrong if you're using that. But yeah, so.
Was there anything from like Summer Games Fest, from the Xbox Showcase?
I was just
that stuff that you guys really jumped out at you? The Starfield expansion looked way better than the main game. The what now?
The pseudo E3 replacement.
Oh yeah.
Do you guys miss E3?
No.
Oh God, I do. I do.
I thought that the Xbox Showcase was really good.
Oh, well, we'll get to that, and I completely agree. I thought the Xbox Showcase was as close to E3 we've gotten since it's disappeared. Yeah. But I'm a sucker for the hype. I love.
Yeah, I like the hype.
Don't get me wrong. The after the fact that they announced games too early, the fact that all this shit, I get that. That was always a problem with E3. But I miss the spectacle. I miss the little of letting the reins off a little bit. Everything is so manufactured. I'm looking at Sony specifically with all their curated showcases, but Nintendo too. It's
Although
just
Nintendo had moved to that with their Treehouse shit,
yes, they have.
long before
Yes,
E3
they
was
have.
gone.
But I miss it. I miss having this 2 days, 3 days where all eyes were on video games, and they kind of brought out their big guns mostly, and even the fuck ups like the stupid Wonder Book shit, like at Sony's press conference, and like all this silly. We're never gonna have all those moments from E3's past that we look back and laugh on, like
But I
what's the
kind
name,
of like that though.
Caffeine Boy, and all the
I
ones like
kind
all
of
the shit.
like
We're not
that.
gonna have
I
it.
don't. I don't like the watching like the PlayStation 3 conference and cringing, or watching the old Xbox One conference and cringing, and it's just I don't.
Or
I
watching
don't
the
want,
Game Awards and cringing.
well, the Game Awards are awful, but that's kind of it's everything becomes Steve Jobsified, and I'm not really interested in that when it comes to games. I don't want that. But yeah, in terms of Summer Game Fest, there was nothing really that jumped out for me. It was nice to see that Xbox were actually doing stuff with games finally, so that was fun. But
it was surprisingly good.
The things that kind of really stood out for me, like, I suppose the two big ones were, I mean, the three was the Zelda game, then there's Metroid Prime 4, which I really can't wait to play. Not sure how that's going to fit in terms of the Metroid Prime timeline, but that's just me being nerdy. And then also seeing the Erdrick trilogy of Dragon Quest games getting the HD 2D remaster, which is just like, those are kind of the tentpole RPGs in Japan.
So I know. Let's just stick on the Dragon Quest thing. Like I'm a fan, but didn't they like last year or somewhat recently? 1 and 2 came out with a re-release as well. Did it not?
No. So what they've actually done is they were the old.
Or they included it.
No. So the news is so you can actually play the first 3 Dragon Quest games on pretty much everything right away now. They're basically versions that were similar to the Super Nintendo remasters of the original Nintendo Entertainment System game. So they're basically you can play pretty much classic Dragon Quest right now. When they announced Dragon Quest 3 ages ago, it was only Dragon Quest 3 that was announced that was getting this 2D HD Octopath Traveler triangle strategy style approach. But when they finally gave a release date, which I think is later this year for Dragon Quest 3, they announced the news of Dragon Quest 1 and 2 would also be getting HD 2D remasters. So we're going to get the whole trilogy now, which is amazing. So,
oh, okay.
I bet they're going to be done in this.
Some part of me thinks this was a Japan only thing and not a North American thing.
No, it's global. And the thing that's
I know Dragon Quest 3 is a global thing, obviously, but I didn't know 1 and 2.
1 and 2 are as well. And what's really interesting is the team behind Triangle Strategy Artdink, which is one of my favourite little Japanese developers. They're also working on all 3 of those games, and I think it's using Unreal Engine as well. So they're really experienced about how to kind of do that forced perspective with the HD2. It looks gorgeous.
What's your take on the 2D HD?
I absolutely love it. I mean,
I love it too. Some people push back on it. I've never seen a bad instance of it. Even when it's done not great, I still think it's great. Like Ayuden Chronicles, for instance, I think it's spectacular in that.
Right, that's also a good one. I mean, Octopath Traveler 1 and 2, Live Alive, my God.
Live Alive, excellent.
And then Triangle Strategy was incredible. So all of that was great. But I mean, to be honest, I've been really enjoying. I mean, it's not like HD 2D, but I really like that kind of style. Like, I mean, I've been playing like the Banner Saga games, and they're not pixel art, but they have really lovely 2D art in a kind of a 3D-ish environment.
I like the Banner Saga games a lot.
They're beautiful as well. So, I mean, I really like that kind of approach. But I think Dragon Quest, especially the Erdrick trilogy, like the original trilogy, is really kind of such an iconic, set of games. And I think the third game is the best game of the 3. So I understand why they were going to release that first. I mean, the third game is technically.
It's really the start of the timeline.
It's the first one, actually. And I mean, have you played Dragon Quest 11?
No.
Okay, I won't spoil it then, so I won't say anything more at this point. You should play Dragon Quest 11.
I saw how long it is, and I was just like, I can't do this.
I would say Dragon Quest 11, especially the S edition. If you play that on PC or I think is it on PS5? But yeah, PC definitely. That is amazing. And it includes the 2D version of Dragon Quest XI that they released on the 3DS back when it was originally released in Japan. Which
I
is amazing.
own it.
Yeah.
I haven't played it.
Yeah, you should. I mean, that I think of probably all of the RPGs released in, like Japanese RPGs especially, released in the last 10 years. That is like head and shoulders the best of all of them as far as I'm concerned.
Wow, I
Better
praise.
than Final Fantasy 15 or anything. I mean, it is just the best sort of JRPG there is, really. I can't think of a modern style that is just that good. And I was not really into RPGs beforehand, but that kind of converted me. And I also, my entry into Dragon Quest was kind of a bit late with like the Dragon Quest Builders games. So I love Dragon Quest Builders, especially the first one, not so much the second. And then Dragon Quest XI came along, and then it just like, I have your soul, and then I just went through the whole thing and just maxed out everything and did. I've played hundreds of hours in the thing. It's amazing, amazing, amazing game. And then I've gone back and started playing all the other Dragon Quest games to catch up. And in front of me, I've actually got the Sword and Shield of Erdrick. So that's how much that has like entered my consciousness. Yeah. So,
what else was in the Nintendo showcase or the Direct? Sorry, there was the new Mario Luigi game.
Not really
about that. The Capcom fighting compilation.
That was an interesting one.
Super pumped about that. It's funny to see the love that MVCT Marvel vs. Capcom 2 gets now. Because it's a lot of revisionism, because at the time release, Marvel vs. Capcom 2 was panned widely for a lot of. It has the highest highs in terms of sprites and animation, and then the lowest lows of being just a ton of reused stuff, like even the soundtrack that everyone, I'm gonna take you for a ride, but everyone hated the soundtrack when it came out, and now everyone it's like remember when Street Fighter 4 came out, they had that rap song at the beginning that everyone made fun of, but now it's like iconic. I don't know if you remember it all, but yeah, but anyway, Marvel's Capcom 2, great. And they got all, like, that whole compilation. I'll definitely be buying it. But skipping Xbox, I guess. I guess there's some problem, Ollie, with the framework and translating that to Xbox's hardware. Do you know anything about that?
I don't think it's that. I just think it's very simply because Xbox doesn't exist in Japan.
Okay, well, that was the excuse given, that it's supposedly hard to...
No. Okay, it really was. Did they actually use that as an excuse?
Yeah.
Okay, maybe that's true, but okay. I mean, MT Framework did kind of...
MT Framework, sorry, yes.
Yeah, MT Framework did it came from like... But the joke is like Lost Planet used MT Framework, as did Lost Planet 2, and those are on Xbox hardware. So, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I'm not 100% convinced that's the real reason. Really, is that Xbox is just a non-entity in Japan, and because the games are developed and made in Japan, Capcom's only. This is a problem mostly with Japanese developers and publishers. Is they're very parochial in terms of how they look at the global market. Unfortunately, it's also one of the reasons why it's only happened until recently that we started getting Steam versions of like big Japanese games, and that I can tell you has been a Herculean effort on the part of people in publishing in the international branches of Japanese companies, pushing hard for Steam versions. Otherwise, the Japanese just would never do it. There's no reason. Steam doesn't really exist in Japan as PC gaming is not really a thing here. Not really. I mean, not to the extent that it is, internationally. I mean, it's beginning to pick up, but a lot of people are just, the culture is basically consoles. Everyone's used to having consoles. But yeah, I was going to say the only other thing that kind of really stood out was like Metroid Prime 4, and then also the fact that they released, Metroid Zero Mission on the Switch, which was like, finally, all the Metroid games. So, I mean, I'm a massive, massive Metroid nerd. And they've just done a new sale for Metroid Dread and the Metroid Prime Remaster, both of which are incredible. Though I don't really like the kind of the super contra speediness of Metroid Dread compared to classic Metroid, but it's still an incredibly good game. I love Metroid. I'm a complete Metroid stan. Metroid and Zelda.
I forget, did Metroid Prime 4 have, or was it just a year? It was next year, right?
Yeah, it's next year. So it's 8 years since the announcement.
Yeah.
That's insane.
That's crazy.
But that actually
time really flies.
But that kind of proves my point that most big games like take about 7-8 years in terms of the dev cycle. What normally happens is you don't hear about it until it's about halfway through or 3/4 of the way through. So it looks like it's only been in development for a short amount of time, but most games are in development for ages. Like Helldivers 2 was in development for 8 years, 7 years. I mean, it's nuts. It's not a sustainable system, but we are where we are. So.
Xbox show, Eric. Let's go with Doom because I mean that had to be that was the game in terms of summer games.
Shield of Blades.
Dude, that looks so cool. And they started off with that, and or there was like the second trailer. I don't remember, but badass. Yeah, looks really good. Looks so good, and such a clever idea. It's called like of what now?
It reminded me of the meme of when people like say, there's our home defense system is a Roomba with a gun and blades on it, and when the Doom music starts playing. So.
Yeah, that shield's freaking sweet. No, that looks so good. I was like, okay. As soon as I realized it was Doom, I was like, oh wait, okay, all right, this is so cool. So I'm really excited for that. Let me see.
I'm glad it's coming to coming to PlayStation, and they admit it. We're going to be seeing that, and I think that's a big
but yeah,
I think that's the big thing. I mean, we already knew this was happening, but the wheels are starting to turn quicker in terms of Xbox becoming, and I think they're poised to become probably the biggest publisher in video games once that whole thing churns.
With Activision and Bethesda.
Yeah, I mean, we can have the Xbox referendum another day, but I mean, I think that's the inevitable conclusion, but they'll probably still make another platform. But I think everything eventually is going to be coming to other things. And I'm just glad Doom, because, as someone who doesn't really find himself on the Xbox platform anymore, just with limited time, I have to make choices. That's it. And preferable places to play. The ones like id Software, Arcane, and a few of those ones, those are the ones that I was like, damn, like I'm going to miss those ones. Machine Games was another one too. But so to see Doom coming to everything day and day, and just how, I love, it looks like you're going to be able to fight like the giant Doom fucking thing, and then you're flying like a metal dragon through the thing. Yeah, I'm all in.
They're leaning into all the good stuff,
Instead of the thing, you got a big mace, like a flail. Holy shit. And then, everyone's going to talk about like the skull grinder gun where you put the skulls in. It's like,
yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, great. I'm such the new Doom games. It's funny because I grew up like you guys. I mean, I'm 45. I grew up with Doom. I played the original Doom, but I was more of like a Wolfenstein guy. And I played those so much that when Doom came along, I was like, yeah, this is great, but I kind of already did all that. And I skipped over it. Really, I got back into Doom with the 2016 game.
That's a great game.
I worshipped. Yeah. I worshipped at the altar of that game. BFG Division, that song, like that thumping. I'm not going to do it. I'll insult Mick Gordon by doing it. Although my imitations are quite good with music. But the BFG Division in 2016, when you get it, I everything was so good. I mean, the score, the visuals, just the fucking carnage. Like, how could you not like that? That's video games to me.
What I like is the fact that it kind of started a trend of boomer shooters in a kind of an indie mid-tier way, which I think is great. Like everyone, we can do these games again. We can do these games again, and everyone just went like whole bunch of I mean, what is it? The Warhammer.
Fun is back on the menu, boys.
The Warhammer.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I love
Space Marine.
I mean, I'm not.
And then
really,
Bolt Cutter. Yeah, Bolt Cutter was good. Yeah, that was.
Yeah,
fun.
I'm not really into like Warhammer, but I love the whole art style. I love the fact that it was kind of like
that's cool.
A bit heavier, but still a boomer shooter. Yeah, I love all that stuff. I mean, I kind of like it when people remember that old genres of games are actually still really, really good. So that's what Doom is. I really like the fact. I liked Doom and Doom Eternal actually. So yeah.
I liked the Doom more than Doom Eternal.
I
like them.
Although it's hard to the same thing for Arkham City to Arkham Asylum. It's hard to go back with the gameplay improvements because I think objectively Eternal just plays so much better. The movement, it's just such an improvement. But Eternal's change to the more arcadey, the way you picked up guns were these glowing things. 2016 was so much more organic under the world. Like I found the rocket launcher clutched in this dead guy's arm.
Yeah, that stuff was just, I just really liked that.
I
felt like something was lost in it.
And call me stupid again, like call me old fashioned. Eric's going to point at me again, but I like the 2016 story. Like I thought it was really cool, and then to see like Eternal kind of just abandoned that Samuel Hayden thing.
Full He-Man is basically what Eternal did.
Yeah, and like you're in this fucking cast. Don't get me wrong, like it was still a great game, but I was like, I wanted to see like what happened and how that laid off. Because spoilers, 2016 ends by the Samuel Hayden, the robot, like fucking you over, which you knew he was going to do anyway. And then you don't really get to see what happened in that whole thing.
One thing I will say about the new Doom stuff is, and also because it ties into the old stuff, is the lore and the story is really, really involved and interesting, which I was not expecting for, especially in Doom Eternal. They really went all in on that.
And the DLCs, like DLCs are big.
Oh my god, yeah! Was it Ancient Gods? No, that was just
1 and 2.
Insane, like the amount of kind of story planning and setting that went into that. I have nothing but respect for that. I thought that was really, really good. I also think they're probably one of the most disciplined, or they have one of the most disciplined art teams or tech art teams I've seen in gaming in terms of how they handle the rendering and everything of all their art assets. It's just so clean. Like the way they get it that good is just there. I don't know any other studio that even comes close to that. And I actually think that, I mean, everyone seems to think that, I mean, I like the fact that Japanese games are kind of considered more, fairly and equally now compared to what they were 15 years ago when everyone was saying that Japanese games were dead. But no, I do think that I do still think that a lot of Western developers are much more technically adept when it comes to sort of the graphical and the art pipelines. And yeah, so the new Doom games, like, I don't think there's anything that looks that good, disciplined.
It looks fantastic.
It's the discipline that I respect. So.
I'll recommend the documentary.
Cool! I haven't seen that.
Readapting the 2016 like Doom for the new generation.
Nice. Okay, I'll check that out.
I think Danny O'Dwyer did it on NoClip. It's really, really good, and it just goes to show people. It gives a little behind the curtain of like how much care and the minutia to really give respect to an old property when bringing it to a new audience. Like I kind of poo-poo some of these documentaries sometimes. They can be self-inflating, like the Kojima one, blah blah blah. But like that one is great. Like it's really great.
I think I just watched the new one about the Wipeout games because I love Wipeout. I grew up playing the Wipeout games on PlayStation, and it was really interesting hearing how all the music for that was done and how they work with Designers Republic and stuff. So no, I mean I really have a lot of respect for those those kind of indie documentaries about games because, as Eric and I know, it's an absolute nightmare trying to get anyone to talk about the games they've worked on in any kind of interview capacity. It really is. It's because they're terrified of losing their job, and the only way you can ever talk to people is when they've kind of left the industry and they're now a farmer, and they're then kind of talking retrospectively on all the stuff that they've done, which is really great, but it would be lovely if they could do that earlier. So anyway.
Yeah. What did you guys think of the Indiana Jones trailer from Machine Games?
Oh, right. I was like, that doesn't...
Well, Eric, what did you think?
I thought it looked great. I think Troy Baker is doing a phenomenal job doing the Harrison Ford voice, which is not easy to do. I'm a little skeptical of it being first person just because I kind of was, I like want to see Indiana Jones and do all the third. But I also, there's so many of that. We already have Uncharted and stuff, so
right.
It plays well.
Why they did it, I think, is they wanted.
It'll differentiate it, And all the cutscenes are in third person, obviously, so that'll be, we'll get all that cinematic stuff. But I think it looks good. I think it looks a hell of a lot better than the last couple Indiana Jones movies. Sure, that. Yeah. Although I haven't seen the most recent one because I'm just dreading it. But I had just hated the fourth movie, Crystal Skull. That was not a good movie. Yeah. Although I was watching, I will say, I didn't like
the premise, but I didn't like...
Yeah, it just was. I was watching Temple of Doom the other day, and I was like, this movie doesn't hold up that well compared to...
Really? Oh, please don't tell me that. That's my favorite.
It doesn't. No, it does.
No,
it's not as good.
No, it's not. You're right.
It's not as good, and it's very sexist.
Raiders
it's
and
very
I used to do like the dude that rips the heart out. I would do that move to my little brother.
There's some fun campy stuff in there, but it's just the female protagonist in that is just so bad.
Yeah.
And she's just a bimbo. Whereas like in the first movie, I can't think of her name, but she's kind of a badass. Yeah, and I just think it's just not as good. It just doesn't hold up, and it's a little cringy to watch again. I'm not gonna lie.
I watched Last Crusade about 4 years ago, and I still thought it was really good. I'm not.
Yeah, I love the little kid.
Yeah,
you know.
Short Round, but that's partly. I mean, I love him in Goonies as well. But
yeah, I love him in Goonies
because he has all the gadgets. But because the thing is, it's like the invert. It's like the opposite of the old Star Trek movies, where every odd-numbered Star Trek movie was shit. Whereas in indie, it's every odd-numbered indie movie is shit. It's good. Except for the new one, which broke the...
Well, I haven't seen it, so I really can't comment.
So we all agree that Last Crusade is still really good.
Yes. I love The Last Crusade.
So and Raiders and Last Crusade are the
Raiders and Last... They're so fucking good. I love those movies. I could watch them over and over again. But I put on Temple of Doom, and I was like, I didn't really love Temple of Doom when I was a kid. And now watching it when I'm older, I was like, yeah, nope, this is why I didn't like it when I was a kid. It's just not as good. And I'm sorry. I'm sorry that it's your favorite and that we're talking shit about it. But
no, but I can see like you saying that and me putting in like my adult lens now. I could honestly see it.
Yeah. No, I mean, and that's kind of the thing. Like some movies,
but scenes like Fried the Monkey Brains, those still are good. But chilled monkey brains.
I think the problem is that first and third have a really kind of good, solid, cogent story which flows, and it's kind of the mystery is revealed in very nice paced segments, whereas in Temple of Doom there isn't really much of a story there.
It's all over the place.
And it's really and the pacing is very strange, and there's a lot of kind of shock and awe kind of with like
the ripping out hearts thing. Maybe that's the one.
And then the monkey brains, and then that whole thing, and then
it's just I feel like the first and third are also they don't like the second movie. There's just a lot of cringy. Like I don't know that whole dinner scene where they're just eating ridiculous food. It's just kind of like, hey, let's be racist against other cultures. And like, I am not a super sensitive person to that, but it's just kind of like a little. It doesn't feel like the other movies.
Like, even today, like the YouTube shorts of going to Indian guys just feeding you the food where they're throwing slop with their hands. That stuff doesn't get old for me. So I probably still like Temple of Doom.
I don't know, and also it's not as I love the World War II setting of Raiders and and the second movie just kind of it's like off in it's just like totally detached from what made Indiana Jones feel like
Indiana Jones,
a coherent Indiana Jones.
One thing I'll say about getting back to the trailer is it was very curious. I haven't seen like an extended gameplay aspect.
Right, we need to see it.
Right.
And like that is my worry about it. Again, Machine Games is great. Their one hiccup was Youngblood. It was not good at all. And
I don't really care for the second Wolfenstein either.
See,
the first one was great.
The second one was the new Colossus. That's his name, right? The new Colossus.
Yeah, I think
pretty sure. Everyone raves about it. I thought it was fine. I thought it was fine.
It wasn't as good as the first one.
I didn't think it was this astronomical game. I thought it was fine, and
I thought it was tedious.
I do too, because some of the levels, the enemy placements and the level design was kind of fucked. Yeah. Like, and sometimes you start a mission and guys would just blast you and you're dead. And I'm like, I know I don't suck at these games. What's going on?
It just wasn't as tight. It wasn't as first game was really great, and then that one I just felt like it. Again, it's just like sometimes they try to do too much. Sometimes all you have to do is a new story with new levels. You don't have to reinvent the wheel with each game. You just don't have to.
I agree. And, just give me more of the same.
Give me more of what worked.
Innovation all the time. I don't need
just
it.
A little bit goes a long way.
Give me a wrinkle.
Give me a new gun. Give me some new stuff. Give me some new enemy types, and give me another story. And that's cool. It's just a shooter. It's a single player shooter. I don't need it to like play radically different or whatever.
That's why Uncharted 2 is the greatest. Like
that's
of that
game.
Thing. Like it took the building blocks of Uncharted 1, which was fine but flawed.
Yeah. But then they made it
gave
better.
Us more of the same refined, and it's amazing.
In a lot of ways, I just think all four of the Uncharted games do a really good job of what they're setting out to do.
Yeah,
I enjoyed all of them.
Yeah,
I think they all were.
I'm.
Great fun and
I remember replaying them. I wasn't the biggest fan of 4, and I still am not. Although I still think it's really good.
it's
I
really
just,
good.
it's still really good. I
Too much
think
climbing, but it's good.
I of the 4. I mean, well, I shouldn't say of the 4. Of the 2, 3, and 4, I actually put 4 last of those. I just do.
Would you
I
rank them in
really,
that
I
order?
really
2,
liked
3, 4.
2. I really
I go 2 Lost Legacy, 3, 4.
Lost Legacy was very good. Yeah,
And I actually like 1 better than most. Lost Legacy is excellent. I thought
it's really good.
it fixed a lot. It fixed a lot of the. I guess my problem with 4. I know we're getting off topic,
Okay.
but I really would have rather seen Amy Hennig's vision of. It seemed it had more consequence attached to this ultimate. The problem with Uncharted 4, and I wanted something different, but I wanted some consequence of it all. And I guess you get consequence. She's not as happy with Nate, blah blah blah, and she gives it to him a bit. But like, there's no consequence to Nate's continued pursuit of this thing, other than he decides halfway through the game he doesn't really want to do this anymore, but he's going to see it through anyway with his brother. And I didn't like the introduction of his brother the way that they did it. I just didn't.
The thing
And
with
that's
me with
right.
4, I mean, for me, it was what the actual final goal was. And I think 1's final goal wasn't very interesting. The third one was a bit weird. It's the second one with, in Tibet with Shangri-La, that was kind of astonishing.
Yeah, like I get
that
people don't.
kind of felt like a real kind of trajectory towards something really special. And I don't think any of the Uncharted games have done something like that since. Like
People try to shit on 2s because of the last boss eating the goo and whatever, but I thought everything other than that is incredible. And
the bosses weren't great in Uncharted, to be honest. So
yeah, like, and I get it, but there's this narrative that 3 would have been remembered as fondly, if not better than 2, if it came out before 2, and I just don't agree with that.
I don't agree with that.
Them on the re-release, I was like, 3's good, but a lot of the narrative choices just are still confusing. Like, even in the moment, you need some of the context to understand some of the stuff. And it's very misleading about what they're doing with sort of the bad guys and how it's going. But it's still an impressive game. But 2 is just this compact vision, and the set design and the way it goes in the puzzles. It's just it's an incredible 12-hour video game. It's incredible.
No, I think that was my favorite of the 4. So sorry.
For sure.
I'm just going to move on because there's a lot of games to go through.
Yeah, shut up, Jim.
Fable. Not sure what to think of that.
Not interested.
Trailer it didn't really show enough for me to really get a sense of what was going to happen in that game.
As a British person, the way that they do the whole British, like, cockiness and cheekiness is just like, that's kind of not interesting to me. It's a bit boring.
Yeah, but we're not British, so to us it's great.
You have no idea. Yeah.
I just love it when they really ham up the British stuff.
I love
that stuff. Let's have a spot of tea.
Yeah, I was on friend say, when you go home, do you stop doing the accent? And I was just like, what?
What are you on about? Of course we stopped doing the accent. Metal Gear Solid remake. That looks good. I'm looking forward to that.
Hold on.
3. Snake Eater.
Oh so yeah, that looks amazing.
Yeah, one of my 5. I'm really, really excited about that.
That's my favorite. I think Metal Gear Solid actually.
But the only thing I'll say about it is I love all the design. I'm like, I don't know how much you know about this, Ollie. Sorry, I know you're trying to speed this along, Eric, because I've always given
time.
I've always given a bit more benefit of the doubt to Konami in the Konami Kojima struggle. Okay?
Sure, I think we're all on the same page with that one.
Really? Yeah. Are we?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Okay, because I mean, this isn't a popular sentiment, and
because Kojima is very popular. But if you ask Ollie, he'll say he's a prima donna, right?
Yeah. And I've already written up about this lots. I've already written up about
okay, because I mean, we don't need to like really get into it, but my broad strokes take on it was Kojima was always late on his games, always over budget on his games, demanded more and more, and it came to a head with Metal Gear Solid 5. We really don't know the inner workings. People just judge the end result, which
he's a good showman. He sells his games, he sells his personality. and that's it.
He's very good at self-promotion.
I think that's a little short. I mean, he's definitely talented. Like what he did with Fox Engine, for instance.
He's had very good, talented people working for him, for sure.
No, I mean, right, with the Fox Engine, that wasn't what he did. That was what he had an army of really, really talented people that did that.
Right.
And to be honest, the first game that started to go over budget, I think, was Metal Gear Solid 3. But I do still think Metal Gear Solid 3 of the Solid games is the best one.
I agree.
It's a fantastic game, and I'm super excited to play it again.
And I think the sniper fight in that game is just magical.
All of them. Like the one thing Kojima does well is the bosses. Like even in like 2's writing is revelatory. So much of it is still so prescient about modern society and whatever. But in terms of a game, 3 is definitely my favorite. I remember it's like one of the games I shed a tear to at the end. Like I actually wanted to salute. And I think the boss, getting back to incredible characters, the boss is one of the best characters written ever.
Mm. Oh, yeah,
Top female characters.
I mean, there was an army of writers. There was an army of level designers.
You're right. Okay.
It's not. I mean, he's very good at selling it as him. But yeah, no, those games.
So why did he get away with this? Because I obviously with Metal Gear Solid 1 is when I became aware of Kojima. So he was pushed extremely high in all the gaming magazines at that time.
Because basically, this is the problem that Eric and I face: is that publishers don't want the reality of how games get made to go public. They want to keep it simple. They want to have figureheads that they control, that they can then control the narrative of what goes out. And basically, Kojima and people, all these people that got put front and center back in the day, they don't do that anymore because people are actually realizing that games are made in a much more complicated, multifaceted, huge team way. And basically, Kojima was just used in that regard to kind of, and he was very good at it. So, and on top of that, I mean, also you've got to understand, like, if you make a really popular game that sells well, like the first Metal Gear Solid did, that gives you about at least a decade of grace. So you can do whatever you want within that decade. And it's kind of why he was able to get away with a lot of what he did for so long. And I think 2 made a lot of money. 3, I'm not sure if it made its money back. I think it did. But it became diminishing returns. And over time, I think 4 was kind of the start of the problem. But by 5... it was like, no, this is not tenable.
And that's why they released Ground Zeroes early to gain back some of the money. But yeah,
and that multiplayer thing later.
Metal Gear Survive to kind of to claw back some of the money as well. But no, I think the remake of 3 is no. I'm very much of the opinion that it's really not all him. I mean, we also know that the original Metal Gear wasn't actually his game. He was given that to finish. So he come up with Metal Gear, and obviously he had an integral role in making it. It's not like he wasn't.
It's like Steve Jobs didn't invent the Apple, but he had an integral role in making.
Yes, I mean the thing is the reality
the company what it was.
I'm not trying to discredit what Kojima has made.
You're trying to frame it and give some perspective to it.
I'm trying to say that it's not just him.
Yeah, right. Bob Dylan can be. You could talk about his great songwriting and performance, but a video game is not the same as a singer.
But I guess a lot of people want to look at video games like how they look at films. Great directors.
This is
even a film. It takes so many people, right? Like we were talking about Lucas earlier.
Yeah.
All right, moving on.
Yeah, so
but Dragon Age: The Veilguard.
I only wanted to stop, and the one thing I'll push back
on.
I don't like what they did with the boss's face. She went from like a vibrant, strong, and now she looks like she's like gone and dying. They even changed her hair color. Like, and people are like, no, that's the filter. I'm like, no, dude, they went like from like a dirty blonde to like this dark brown. And first, like that character matters to me. I think it's incredible. If they ever made a Metal Gear Solid 6, I actually, since she's the genesis of Metal Gear, I was like, how good would Metal Gear Solid 6, the boss landing on the beaches of Normandy with her team? Because that's where she talks about in some of the things she stormed Normandy in World War II, blah, blah, blah. I was like, that seems like a great idea for a game. But anyway, I don't like what they did with her face. Looks weird. Moving on.
Yeah, moving on.
Dragon Age, The Veilguard.
Yeah.
Eric?
I thought it looked bad. straight up. Looked like it again. It doesn't look like anything that fans of Dragon Age want. It looks like they've created it for an entirely new audience.
So,
and I'm not talking about diversity. I'm not talking about any of that shit. I'm talking about the art style.
Yeah.
I'm talking about the gameplay. Art style looks generic. It's not dark. It looks it's very vibrant and very cartoony. The whole the trailer was bad, like much worse than the actual gameplay showcase. But with all the different, it looked like it was a trailer for a fighting game or for a hero shooter or something.
It looked like something for Overwatch.
Yeah, and then the gameplay itself is very actiony, and you don't have really very much control at all over companions, and there's no real tactical combat. And then you can romance every single freaking one of them. Every character's pansexual, and I just feel like that the limitations on romance are kind of what makes it fun, and just making everyone romanceable to anyone, to any gender is dumb. I also am sick of romance in RPGs, and I'm fucking done with it. And I wish people would stop doing it. I wish that they would emphasize friendship and companionship in RPGs, not just romance. That seems to have taken. It's like the easy route. You just try to get your character laid, rather than having really interesting choices and story development with characters.
But that's
my take.
That's the byproduct of the create your own character template, interact with your party. It's like these, create your relationships. Whereas, I'm far more of the person, give me your vision, give me your character, I'll play through it with the relationships that you curated for me, and I'll find them out. I'm not a big...
Make interesting choices.
Some people love that. Some people are like, I want to be able to create these choices and play the games my way, and I want to fuck with...
Well, I think there's a balance.
To me, that's odd. I don't...
An RPG should give you choices and give you the freedom to make story choices, but it shouldn't just be like anything goes, or you start to lose the whole idea of choices have consequences, and you have to sometimes you don't know what those consequences will be, and that's what makes it an interesting story. And I don't know.
You even go back to Origins. Origins had 6 different template starters of races and backgrounds. And you had to you could have these 6 different ways to start the game, and go from there. But like you said, just on the pure romancing thing, it seems odd, man. I don't know. Yeah. I'm not gonna get so hung up on it. It just seems odd.
But I just think that watching the gameplay also, it just didn't look fun. It didn't look good. If I'm gonna play an action RPG, I'll play an action RPG that has good crunchy combat. It just looks floaty and basic and easy, and your companions are basically just sitting over there pew-pewing from the edges, and it just seems so not like Dragon Age.
This game has clearly stopped and started at least twice, maybe 3 times,
with a total name change too.
Now they've changed the name from the Dreadwolf to the Veilguard, and they've adopted this Fortnitification bubble weird style that everyone is done, and I fucking hate.
Well, there's so much generic stuff out there. A lot of these games are looking
more and
more
get
generic.
Dragon Age but it's Dragon Age is still chasing the ghost of Origins, and it's
not very well.
And I just don't even.
Origins.
I call myself a fan of it, but I didn't like 2. And I thought Inquisition was this empty promise. It's clearly a game that was meant to be something different that they never got to, because at some point in development, it was supposed to be cross-gen, and it was cross-gen. Because you can look at the early videos of Inquisition, it was this PS4, Xbox One thing, and then it was meant to be this cross-gen. And there's so much empty space in that game. And I can't believe, I hate that they can sit on this one. I still hate that Inquisition can sit on the fact that they think they were this Game of the Year winner.
Which
you know what I mean? Of 2014. It pisses me off because it wasn't... One, it was a bad year of video games. 2, whatever. And Transistor was just a much better game. I would have gave it to them. But, I'm with you.
The whole Game of the Year stuff is absolutely...
I get it.
Bullshit.
But it's about Kojima. They want to have this thing. Right?
Yeah, but I ignore that.
It's all the advertising.
Rubbish.
You've heard BioWare said our follow-up to the game. They're using that Game of the Year thing as this stepping stone platform. And in a way, as a studio, I don't blame them. But I feel like it's they're shirking these things that they haven't been able to live up to by doing that. And I don't know. This game just looks so focus test.
Yeah, but that's like, quote Derek Zoolander, really that's la mer. Yeah, it's rubbish.
Yeah. What do you guys think about Avowed? What you've seen of Avowed so far? The new first-person fantasy RPG.
Oh, I think it was. That looks interesting, actually. Yeah.
I don't love the art style. Again, it sort of feels generic to me.
Yeah, it is very generic.
You know, and I'm kind of. I wish that somebody would just have a bold vision for the fucking art style once in a goddamn while. Yeah. Like, I don't know why we can't have more. I mean, like, that's the thing about, like, I love like at least Dark Souls and shit. They've got like an art style. At least some of these games have an art style.
Is budget. Is the bigger the budget, the less risk that the publishers take, and they want it to be as super relatable and generic as possible. That's why really big budget games are suffering, because they actually look worse. So
yeah, it would. People would be attracted to something that looks unique.
And I liked Avowed because it's like modern day Kingsfield.
Yeah, no, it looks cool. I hope it's just fun and it's a good story.
Yeah.
Perfect Dark.
Okay.
Rattle off a few of these. Okay.
You guys say it. Yeah, go ahead.
I thought it looked really cool, but I didn't really play much of the original Perfect Dark, so I don't have. But it looked pretty interesting.
Yeah, apparently this
looks like it's going to be pretty cool.
Quadruple A game.
Yeah,
I don't know what that means.
It means budget.
I think that
it means budget. It's money spent.
I don't know why you would spend that much money on a game like Perfect Dark, which most people nowadays have no attachment to whatsoever.
And no one knows what it is.
So long ago.
Yeah.
New Gears of War, on the other hand.
One sec.
Okay, for me, sorry.
Go ahead.
Sorry, Jason.
Yeah, sorry.
No, you go ahead, Ollie, and then I'll
for Gears of War 4, what's really strange for me is I was a senior game designer on Gears of War Judgment, and Gears of War Judgment is actually set during Emergence Day, right? It's E-Day, and you play and you play as Baird, right? I think it's Baird, and so you don't play as Marcus. So what's weird for me is they're basically making Gears of War Judgment with Marcus. So it's like, I made this game 10 years ago. What's going? My brain, help! So that's what I think
it'll be cool, though.
No. I loved working on and playing Gears of War Judgment, and I think that's partly because the setting and the timing of when that happens in terms of all the weapons and stuff that they have access to. Because by the time of Gears of War, the first one, it's like way later, and everything's just destroyed, and they've got nothing, and they're all dying horribly. And then that trilogy is like really tough because they're really up against the wall. Whereas with Judgment, they actually had loads of hardware still around, so it was a much more kinetic kind of shooter, and it was great fun to work on because you had a lot more to work with. So I think Gears of War 4, if they go down that route with Marcus, I think it's going to be something really, good. So I'm looking forward to it, but it's just like.
That's funny.
Did I make that game 10 years ago? I mean, it was weird. Or one of the. I worked with an army of people, obviously, but
did you say you were? Was it Gears of War Judgment or 4 that you were?
Oh, 4 Judgment. 4's the one that's. No. So what's this one? Gears.
This is E-Day.
This is E-Day, right? Sorry. So Gears of War Judgment was the one I worked on, which is basically it's set during E-Day or not far from E-Day. It's like around that time. So that was
early days
for me. Yeah.
So what was the previous game to E-Day? Was it 5 or 4?
Was there another one? Have they done more E-Day?
I think there was a Gears of War 5.
Yeah, I think it was called Gears 5.
Yeah.
Is that during E-Day?
I only asked that.
Yeah,
no, I know. Right.
Hold on.
Because I think
it's so long since I've played a Gears game.
A guy I grew up with.
Gears 5 came out in 2019. Yeah.
Yes.
But was that E-Day? Did that cover E-Day?
No. Gears 5 wasn't E-Day. No. It's the new one is E-Day.
Because the thing I loved about Gears Judgment was that they gave all the developers access to a special character called the Reaper, which only you could play as. And I used to play with that online, and it was amazing hearing kids going completely insane, like, "Oh my god, it's the Reaper! Oh my god!" I used to get like a million.
More game developers should do that.
Yeah, and
I don't know why people don't do fun stuff like that.
And I used to get like a million messages from kids going like, "Please play as the Reaper, please," because if you killed the Reaper, you got a special medal. But it was almost impossible to kill the Reaper because you were so fast. You could kill everyone. You could one-shot everyone because you had a scythe and you could fly, and it was just you were insanely fast and powerful. And I used to play that all the time and just like I'm going to ruin your day. Kind of, and the kids loved it. The kids were like, oh, this is the most amazing thing ever. Get the Reaper, get the Reaper. Anyway, so that was my endurance, and I loved working on the multiplayer for that. There was a really interesting multiplayer setup we had for that, which was unique to Judgment, and that was a lot of fun. So sorry, I'll shut up now because it's just
no, you're good. You're good.
It's me reminiscing, which is very, very self-indulgent. So I'll shut up.
No, it's always fun to hear about development.
No, the only reason I asked that is because a guy I grew up with that we reconnected, a friend of mine, he was the lead concept designer or lead concept artist for Gears 4. So that's why I asked you which one you worked on. Yeah.
No, I worked in Poland at People Can Fly, who developed Gears of War Judgment. Most of that team also then left and went to CD Projekt Red and made The Witcher 3 and Cyberpunk. So I've
never heard of those games.
No, never.
Yeah, no.
Games.
Yeah. A lot of my friends. So I used to hear lots of horror stories from them. So, but it was that working at People Can Fly. That was the studio I was at in Warsaw. Was some of the best time I think I've had in my career. They were really nice, good, capable, talented people that work really, really. They were always very curious and very humble, which is a very good combination, I think, in game development.
Yeah,
but they were really lovely.
Just
people.
generally in life, I think.
Yeah, probably also good in life as well. But
no matter what you do, really.
It was very, very nice. So easily one of the best studios I've worked at, and Polish developers are really quite, impressive and quite remarkable. I feel sometimes. So yeah, I do kind of miss those days. They were good fun.
The only other games that I'm thinking of here from that, they showed off Black Ops 6, which I've actually had hands-on time with. I think it looks really good. And Age of Mythology was an interesting reveal as a new Age of Empires release, which I wasn't expecting. That was kind of a surprise. But an Age of Empires with Greek gods and Greek stuff is kind of a neat twist on that series.
Yeah, I love else? Is Age of Mythology, Age of Empire, is that an RTS or a turn-based strategy
that's
game?
That's RTS.
Like is it?
I think so. It's been a really long time since I've played this. I actually have them on my computer right now.
Civ is a turn-based strategy.
Civ's turn-based, yeah. No, this is more like...
They announced the new Civ for consoles, right?
Did they?
Yeah, did they not?
I haven't.
Pretty sure they did.
Noticed. There's a lot of stuff out.
Sid Meier came up and he introduced it. Handsome fella.
Yeah. But other than that, I mean, that's the main stuff. I mean, there was like a WoW expansion that they announced and some other smaller games, but I don't know. That's kind of the big things from the
it's kind
showcase.
of more my wheelhouse, but they keep kind of trying to tease more information about the new Mecha Break, which is this massively online mecha multiplayer game in China.
The design... No, but I want you to talk... thank God you brought it up, because actually I had that a mental note to talk to you about it, and I completely... Because the art is great.
So the
mecha designing and personalization you can do seems impressive.
Yeah. So what's interesting is a lot of people is kind of tweaking. So okay, this will take a bit of explanation, but
there we go.
So Mecha Break is actually, at the moment, they finally announced that the mecha design is being done by two guys, one is called Takayuki Yanase and the other guy is called Junya Ishigaki. Junya Ishigaki is a very interesting guy. He did all the mecha design for Xenogears. He also did a lot of the stuff for V Gundam and worked on a lot of Gundam shows. He's a really interesting and kind of does very kind of elegant designs. Takayuki Yanase is kind of a modern version of Hajime Katoki, which is kind of does a lot of stuff in Eureka 7, does a lot of Gundam. Very blocky. He worked on Armored Core 6. He did one of the designs for that. He used to actually work at From Software. But the interesting thing about Mecha Break is that they are following a pattern of games which I think I started back in 2012 with Strike Suit Zero, which was to use when non-Japanese studios use Japanese mecha designers. So I think Strike Suit Zero was the first game to do that, and I was the first one to do that. But I think following that. There have been a bunch of companies that have started hiring mecha game designers from Japan, and I think it's mecha designers from Japan because I think that's entirely the right thing to do because it is a very specific craft that only really exists in Japan. There are some really interesting mecha designers outside of Japan, like Ben Mauro and Aaron Beck, who worked on things like Chappie and District 9. I think they're some of the best international mecha designers out there, especially for Hollywood.
But they're not as cool.
I don't know about that. I think it depends. It depends on what you're trying to do. But I think
I've seen those designs in like comic form, and I think they can look cool then. But don't get me wrong, I like those movies like Chappie and I think they're incredible, and I do like
it's a
that.
different.
But like, if we're talking about
yeah.
like Omni Gear
Yeah,
with blade, like nothing comes close to Japanese mecha design. Like it doesn't come close.
No, I 100% agree with you. I actually do 100% agree with you. But I do think that there are some really talented people outside of Japan as well.
Okay, yeah.
That are trying to do some interesting things. But 100%, I mean, Armored Core 6 used the talents of Shoji Kawamori and Kazutaka Miyatake, and that was a massive deal because those are the founders of, well, one of them is the founders of Studio New in the form of Miyatake. But I think one of the best things that Mecha Break has done was to hire proper mecha designers to make it work. And I've got a feeling that Takayuki Yanase. I mean, I already figured out that Takayuki Yanase was doing the mecha design. It was really obvious. And I wasn't Junior Ishigaki. It wasn't quite so clear because they have stylized their designs.
Sure,
a bit
yeah,
more.
yeah.
But I think they've got some other designers that they're going to reveal later on. So I think it's going to be a bunch of different designers. I hope. But no, the game looks interesting. I think it's going to do very, very, very well in Asia. I'm not so sure if it's going to actually have legs internationally, but that's just my opinion.
Who's developing it?
It's a new Chinese company called Season Games.
Okay.
But they've been developing it for 8 years. And what's also fascinating for me, and I probably should or shouldn't talk about this because this is very, very inside baseball, is that when I made Strike Suit Zero, when I worked on Strike Suit Zero, I left that before it was finished because they ran out of money and they had to do crowdfunding. But the same team that made that were then approached by Season Games to make Mecha Break, but it was going to be a very different game. But Season Games didn't know that the person that set it all up and hired the mecha designer and did everything was me, and I'd gone. So they went to that studio.
You need the Kojima PR team.
No, I know, it's fine. It doesn't matter. But what's hilarious for me is they went to the studio thinking, oh, these guys know mecha. And it was like, well, most of them had no idea. And I was the one that had to kind of prop up a lot of... Because it was a very, very small team. When you're on a very small team, like, a few people can make an enormous difference. And, yeah, so it's kind of funny for me watching when... Because I will say this, you never get to see behind the curtain on the history of how a game gets made. But Season Games did this really interesting documentary of like how the game evolved and who they worked with along the way. And the first version of the game was made by my old studio, and it was rubbish. And I was like, ah! So I was like, okay, that makes sense. Anyway, that was kind of gratifying for me because they weren't very good guys.
So Mecha Break is an online game.
Yes.
And you design your own mech.
I'm not sure you design your own mech. I think you have mecha types, and then you can kind of customize.
Like, frames, and then you add and design.
And then the loadout,
buy new shit for them. Yeah. So is it PvP strictly?
Yeah, well, I think it looks PvP PvE. So it's kind of like, I think they're going to be like online missions. I haven't actually played it yet.
Okay.
This is actually something that's interesting.
I was kind of just enamored with the design and the art.
No. I mean,
I know it's online, but what is this game?
It's basically a multiplayer game. But what's interesting is that you can transform, fly around. So I think that's going to be really interesting from a multiplayer standpoint. But what Eric and I also have to deal with is that sometimes companies want you to sign NDAs to basically cover a game, which we're not allowed to do. And this company, Amazing Season, got in contact with me a few times, like, would you like to cover it? Will you sign the NDA? I went, I can't sign the NDA. So I can't play it.
You can sign embargoes, but NDAs are...
Yeah, so I can't do that. So I haven't actually played it yet, even though they have been in contact. They seem like really good guys, by the way. I mean, I'm really, I'm not, they're not bad in any way, but it is kind of frustrating when you have to sign an NDA to cover a game.
It seems for in the modern era of openness, in the modern era of openness and like alphas, actual released alphas, you'd think an online game would really be more open.
I think the thing is because the game's been in development for such a long time, and this is like their first baby, their first game, they're really worried. And I get it. I get that they're really scared because, it's a big risk for them and they don't want to get bad press before it starts because they don't want to lose momentum. I understand all of that. So I get where they're coming from. It's not a criticism of them, but for me personally, it is frustrating because I'd like to play it.
Mm-hmm.
So,
did you see the trailers for that Hawk Ops game?
No.
The shooter Hawk Ops based on the old the old franchise.
Oh,
No,
Delta Force.
Delta, yeah, Delta, whatever the fuck, Hawk Ops, yeah.
Oh,
So
yeah, I did see that. Yeah.
there's, that looks pretty good, and I'm curious what you think of that. How that's gonna do in Asian markets, because it looks like it looks like a combination of Call of Duty, Battlefield, and all that. But I'm wondering if that's going to be marketed more towards an Asian audience.
Why do you think it's going to be marketed more towards an Asian audience?
Well, because it's an Asian company making it, isn't it?
Oh, Timmy. Oh.
Yeah. So
Okay, so this is interesting because Call of Duty Mobile is absolutely massive in Asia.
yeah, right.
I think the install base, like global install base, because it's still massive in the US, but I think the global install base is like upwards of 500 million people, which is more than Fortnite. It's one of the biggest shooters online.
Yeah, it's huge.
It's also really, really good. If you play it
Yeah.
on an iPad with a gamepad, like a PlayStation 4 or PlayStation
Yeah,
5
yeah.
DualShock, it's I play it all the time actually, and I actually worked on Call of Duty Mobile to get a mecha design into the game. So
Yeah,
I
remember you telling me that.
yeah. So that was
Yeah.
that was amazing. But that game's really good, and Timmy are a really good studio. But
Yeah.
I think I'm not sure that it would necessarily. So the way that it would be definitely right. So looking at the number of platforms, there's nothing mobile there. So
Okay.
I don't
So
see
no.
how that would be really
Couldn't be that
popular
big.
in Asia, right? Because PC, well, okay, there is PC. So like in Korea, in parts of Asia, PC gaming is still a big thing, but it's primarily a big console release by the looks of it. But what for me,
Yeah.
all I remember about Delta Force was back in the day was playing that, and that had voxel graphics, and you could see for miles and miles.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember that a lot actually. I think
It looks good. I'm just
Yeah.
because it was the same studio. I thought I wonder how much this is being marketed in Asia. Hopefully it's really good. I mean, it looks freaking fantastic as far as I can tell. It looks
Yeah,
like
no,
they
it
have a
looks
lot of-
amazing.
it has a Black Op Down campaign, which is pretty cool, and
Ooh.
it's got big, huge, large scale Battlefield style maps, but also smaller Call of Duty style 6v6 type stuff. So there's a lot of variety, and it's free to play.
Yeah.
So
No, I know that Timmy will make something really solid because their gameplay, they like how they handle control. I actually think it's better than mainline Call of Duty, and I'm probably.
I'll have to try it on an iPad with a controller.
Yeah,
I just hate mobile games.
That is I will say that is the only mobile game that I play and enjoy regularly. And
I got two games. Go ahead, Eric. Sorry.
No, I was just going to say, like, to kind of enter our wrapping up phase, I thought we did talk about what we're playing. I guess I've already talked about it because I'm playing Elden Ring, though I would add I also have tried out Valorant on console, and it was really good.
Okay.
Surprisingly good.
Okay.
I've been playing the
Before we jump in, I had two games I wanted to talk about before we jump. We don't really have to talk. Mixtape, as a 90s kid, 80s kid, that game looked really great. A lot of fun. It was in the Xbox showcase.
I don't know. I missed some of that showcase.
The trailer looked stellar. It had all the those notes, the summer nostalgia pulls that we all probably would fall for. I was super big on it. And one game I did see it.
I did see that trailer. Yeah. Huh, that looks interesting. Kind of like a narrative road trip game.
Mm-hmm.
Cool art style.
Yeah. It a bit more than the nostalgia pulls to me. And I'm a big
it looks interesting.
I'm a big fan for those games. I loved
very imaginative.
Edith Finch.
Edith Finch, dude, that fucking game. I fucking cried at the end of that game, dude.
Okay, it's incredible. It was such a good game.
That was really interesting because the guys, when I went to People Can Fly, the original guys that made that studio left very shortly afterwards to set up the astronauts and make Edith Finch.
Oh, yeah. I'm in love with that game. I bought the physical version from Limited Run. I thought it's an incredible game.
Yeah, it totally surprised me because it's not really my style of game, but when I played it, I was just
was actually one thing I really wanted to talk about very, very quickly. They did a really interesting interview with Josh Fairhurst about how limited run games works, because limited run gets a lot of bad, stuff. And the things that they do, what I find really, really interesting from having worked in publishing and development, is that what Josh is talking about is all true, and most of it is to do with publishers and having a lot more control over what's happening. So things like, what was it, the Scott Pilgrim DLC not being included in the limited run version, that has nothing to do with limited run games. That has everything to do with Ubisoft. Stuff like that. And it's just like, because people don't see the back end of the industry at all, they don't understand why he's doing it the way he's doing it. So I thought that was a really good interview because it actually shed light on, yes, this is why it's done this way. He's also very much pro-developer, trying to help developers, which is why they have a limited contract window, because he doesn't want developers to be locked into unfair contracts that go on forever, which happens with publishers. So there's a lot of really good stuff in there that I felt that really should be out there more, so people understand that he's actually trying to do this all in really good faith. There's a few, fuck ups they did with like.
Yeah, I don't think it still addresses the fact that sometimes there's 2-year lead times on pre-order.
Yeah, okay. So the 2-year lead times, that's also to do with publishing and also to do with development. Yeah. It's not so much their side of it which is the issue. So, and I don't work for limited run games. I don't have any connections with these guys. I know them online a bit, but I don't.
I bought a lot of their shit. It's just I fell off of it because of that, and I've given them a lot of money. But I
understand how people feel about the delays, and I get it. But realistically, if you're a small studio, it's impossible to make physical versions of games with the resources you have and the time you have. So to have a company that offers that for you is fantastic. But because of the lead times of how games get made, that often means that the limited run guys are waiting for ages before they can actually get any kind of material from a developer to actually
yeah.
So
then you gotta refine stuff. I get it. Sorry, Eric. And the last game I wanted to talk about from that show, I actually really wanted to. It's that Clair Obscur Expedition 33, the French RPG that seemed to have the Persona interface. Please tell you didn't see this.
I'm just trying to remember. I think I did.
It's a. I don't get the name. The name is fucked up. Like I don't understand why you would name
it. Yeah.
Like the trailer's incredible. It looks super in depth, or like really stylized, high budget.
That looks good.
Yeah, it has like the Persona menu system.
Oh, it's Unreal Engine 5. Interesting.
Man, French games are always super janky though.
Yeah, well, they probably won't be if it's using Unreal Engine.
One.
Dishonored was not.
Yeah. Well, okay, not every single one. Wow, that looked like a Dark Souls boss. Yeah, that's cool looking. That looks cool. That looks way cooler than Dragon Age.
Yes, much better.
Oh, okay,
like that was one of the games.
I didn't see that one. I must have missed that. I don't think I got.
There's a lot of games. There's only so much time to catch up. Yeah. I missed a lot of stuff.
Sometimes I'm writing about another game while another game's playing or whatever.
But
that looks cool. I'm going to put that on my radar because
check that game out. I mean, that along with Metaphor Fantasio seems to be
that was good.
Standouts. Let's go with what we've been playing to close this out.
So what I've been playing, I just did the review for it, was Megaton Musashi W Wired. I've been covering that since 2016 when they announced it as a big, huge series. I then interviewed Akihiro Hino about the whole thing, and I agree with him that he wanted to feel like super robots are this like untapped genre, and he's right. But the thing is, he made an action game, which is like, that's not how you do super robots. And also the gameplay is unbelievably repetitive because it is literally the same combat over and over and over and over again against the same enemy. Well, not the same enemies, but enemies that kind of get progressively harder. And also because it uses an RPG framework, which is what level 5 knows, it basically means you can over-level your mecha and just destroy everything. And because the missions are just so repetitive, it's just not fun. You're just like, I'm an incredibly powerful mecha now, and I can just destroy everything over and over again. So it's just
that could get tedious.
For me, I mean, there was amazing production value because they've got a whole anime story to it. They've got this visual novel like RPG element, which is great, but the actual like core gameplay that stitches it all together is just incredibly repetitive and broken. And also, they're not super robots because you can't have an action game with super robots because super robots break rules. Like, basically, they fix themselves by having a teenager scream loudly. It doesn't work with games because games are all about rules and being consistent, and super robots are there to break it. So, especially action games. So, so I just felt it really just kind of sad because I wanted that to be good, and it wasn't. So
that's always sucks, doesn't it? When you just want something to be so good,
and then
yeah,
I've been
and it
let
was the
down many
build up
times in
over.
my life.
Again, it took 8 years. This is again, it's the magical 7-8 years of big game development.
Eric, other than Shadow of the Erdtree, what do you like?
That's the problem. There's games like I need to start, like Shin Megami Tensei 5,
Are you gonna
which
play
I
that?
have in my Steam library, but I have not started it. And other
Did you
stuff.
follow?
But yeah,
you follow the franchise?
not that closely, but it's close enough to Persona, which I like a lot, and I've enjoyed them in the past.
Well,
This
that
one
was
looks
the
great.
original Persona. Was it not?
Well, it's where Persona came from. I'm pretty
Yes.
sure, like
Yeah.
from that, it was born out of that series. And then it's honestly the Elden Ring has just taken up so much of my game time, so I haven't really done a lot else. But that's on my to-do list.
That I think they put the Demon Souls remaster on sale recently because I've had a ton of people mailing me asking to help them, which is really nice. I actually played with a little kid.
I'm happy to.
And I played with a kid who I gave him like a Dragon Longsword +5, and I could just hear him over the microphone just going, "Oh my god!" because he was like destroying everything with like flames, and it was just like. So I made a kid happy, which was good.
That's good. You're like Santa Claus in Boletaria.
Yeah, right.
Boletaria Santa Claus. That's a band name right there.
Anyway,
the Demon Souls version of "Let Me Solo Her."
Yeah.
How about you, Jason? Anything good these days? Or
I've been taking care of kids and tearing my house apart so it can get painted and this and that. But
the game of life.
Yeah, I platinum. I wanted to go when the DLC all came out for Final Fantasy 16. Like I don't know. I'm an idiot. I like platinuming games. I do. I wanted to go back and platinum Final Fantasy 16, but I wanted a reason to be there. And that final DLC gave you 2 more icons, which are the power sets, I should say. So not only did you get Leviathan, but spoilers, you get access to Ultima's power set as well. So I was able to go through the Final Fantasy mode version of Final Fantasy 16, which is harder. And it actually it's not just harder, it gives you other enemy placements and harder mob sets and things like that. So it was enjoyable, but man, I put a lot of hours into the game. I'm happy it's done, but I loved it very, very much. And
it's good.
Now I'm playing Eiyuden Chronicles because I backed that game. I got the physical version and the steelbook. They were nice enough to send to me. So I'm really pumped to get into that. I think they had a patch. I'm like that. I never play games on day one anymore because my time's too valuable to be a fucking beta tester. You guys don't have that luxury because you have to review games and review products. I can wait, and I do that. But also Stellar Blade. I'm in on Stellar Blade now. After our last podcast, you convinced me. The demo sort of talked me out of it, but I was sort of like half in, half out anyway. But after talking to you, how the combat picks up, I'm definitely going to get into it, and that'll be my next. Other than Eiyuden Chronicles, that's my next game.
Hell yeah!
And I'm
sweet.
I got a little bit of time coming up in this next month. Things let up for me, so I'll be able to play a lot of video games. I hope.
Yeah, it's tough, man. Life is busy. There's so much every day. I'm just like, man, I thought I was going to get 45% more done today than I did, but all I did was pick up new stuff to do tomorrow. Games take a lot of time.
I love video games so much, and I love spending money on them, and I just have no time to play them.
I just spent a bunch of money on 4K Blu-rays because we watched Mad Max Fury Road on my 4K Blu-ray of it, and partway through it was started to skip a little bit, and I was like, let's just switch over to streaming. I switched over to streaming, and it was like the ugliest.
It's so much worse.
It was,
and if you don't even know that,
I cleaned the disc. So I'm like, fuck this. I'm going to buy a whole bunch of movies I love on 4K, and I'm going to watch movies the way they're meant to be watched, not this fucking streaming sham that they've all convinced us is okay.
Yeah,
it's okay for some stuff,
but
it's not okay for things that you want to actually enjoy the visual spectacle.
So this is actually a really big. This is a really big problem for anime as well. So
yeah.
And I mean, one of the things I'm really glad about sort of anime in general is that we still have lots of Blu-ray distributors, especially for older stuff. So, I mean, the fact that they released all of Gundam on Blu-ray, in pristine quality, I think is absolutely astonishing and amazing, because as a kid I never would have imagined that ever happening. But
it's great to get the old stuff, and old movies too. I got the 60th anniversary edition of Lawrence of Arabia on 4K, and I haven't watched it yet because I just got it, but I'm excited to, because it's going to look great. I know it. And I got Cowboy Bebop. Speaking of anime, on Blu-ray, I had all the Studio Ghibli movies on Blu-ray, but it was a gift to my girlfriend, and then we broke up, and she took those with her. I don't blame her; they were a gift to her.
By the way,
man, they were awesome.
I think. By the way, I think that's pronounced Studio Ghibli. It's an Italian.
I say Ghibli because I like it better, like GIF and GIF. I just can't say Ghibli. I can't do it. Okay. It does not come trippingly off the tongue.
The reason why it's for me is because in katakana it's written Ghibli, so I only ever see it as that when I live here. So that's the thing.
Yeah,
so
I'm glad we're on the same page with the 4K stuff, because I'm the same way. Like,
I have a great TV and I've got a great surround sound. It's like, why am I wasting this on streaming? Like, sometimes, some stuff you have to. It's just shows or whatever. But on Fury Road, dude, that shit is gorgeous. Why would you stream it? I'm gonna. I got. Did
you see
Furiosa? I got both Blade Runners. Oh, Furiosa was great. I loved Furiosa. It was really fun. It wasn't as good as Fury Road, but it was really, really good. Yeah, I really enjoyed it.
I'll never forget one of my last memories. I mean, I lost my dad last year, but whatever. I got drunk and I had my parents over for dinner, and we would always have a movie on, and we watched a number, and we'd do this. But one night, I'm like, fuck it. I'm putting on Fury Road. And my mom was there, and my dad's there, and I had, again, this is my old house. My new house has a new, better system. Well, my last house, I sat my dad up in the Lazy Boy recliner and just Fury Road on like full blast. I had no kids. So the whole fucking house shaking. And I'm like, isn't this great? And my mom's looking at me like, what are you, like,
who are you?
Shiny and chrome. And my mom's like, what is this fucking movie? Like, oh my God. I just didn't
What a day.
I just went right through the stop sign, and I was like, this is my dad.
Oh, yeah, dude. That's how
my dad loved it. He goes, that's really weird, but I really liked it.
Yes. Yeah, no, physical media, man. I'm going to start writing about it more, too, because I just think people they don't even know what they're missing. Now they're all watching their fucking phones, watching movies on their phones. This is for YouTube, man. This is
and like Ollie, like Crunchyroll. Like most people only know anime from Crunchyroll.
Yeah. It's just sad. It's sad. But we have 4K, like the ability to watch amazing stuff on the best TVs we've ever had, the best systems, the best sound we've ever had. You just have to go out and get it, So it's a time when it's so convenient not to do that, but it's so accessible to still do that, and it's worth it. Like, it's worth it for those. I got the Batman trilogy. I got Braveheart. I got a Stanley Kubrick collection. I got some.
I got to
have a lot of movies. Good.
Well, I mean, I picked up the Heat 4K remaster that came out. Have you ever seen the movie The Fall by Tarsem Singh?
Oh God, that's one of the most amazing films ever.
It's one of the most visually impressive, if not the most visually impressive.
Yeah, it's based on a Bulgarian movie called Yo Ho Ho, I think.
Eric, if you haven't seen it, you gotta watch it. Yeah, Lee Pace it's a young Lee Pace who is the main actor.
Oh, really? Interesting.
It's a
wonderful film.
Oh, that looks very
colorful. I was watching it the other day with my wife.
Extremely imaginative with its story and a complete visual spectacle. Anyway, I picked that up, the import version, like all the. I like to get like the super expensive. The other one I got.
The Blu-ray is $150 on it.
Yes, I paid that.
But that's great. That's awesome.
The other one I imported was I love the movie Wong. The Grandmaster. It's a kung fu film, but Wong Kar-wai I think is the director, a Chinese guy. In the Mood for Love. He does a lot of dramatization.
No. Was it 2042? Was that the other one that he did?
Yes, that was one of his earliest ones. But Grandmaster was sort of a kung fu film, and there was the North American release, and then there was the Hong Kong release. I imported the Hong Kong release, but neither of them seemed to be like the definitive version, because each one cuts out different parts of it. It's such a good movie, though. It's great. Zhang Ziyi was the main actress in it. You haven't seen much of her since her like Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. Then she did the Rush Hour films.
That was it. Yeah.
And Hero, obviously. But since then, I think I remember reading interviews with her. She's like, they wanted me to be like this one thing. I was a more well-rounded actress than that. Anyway,
cool. Well, this was
movies and collector's editions. I'm all in.
Yeah, fucking A. This was fun. We will do this again sooner than later. It's been kind of crazy. Everyone's been busy or, work emergencies, family emergencies.
And we did game time an episode for sure.
Yeah. We game time. Yep. But yeah. Thanks to everyone who listened or watched this podcast. Thank you guys for joining me and talking about games and movies and all that good stuff. And yeah, catch you guys next time.
Peace, guys. Thanks very much. There will be a song on there. We'll pick one.
Yeah, maybe we'll do that Doom song.
Let's do Doom. That's awesome.
Take it away, Mick Gordon. And id Software still hasn't paid him for Eternal. Paid.
Oh God.
Yeah, seriously, what the fuck?